Chapter 320, A Zither as a Gift, 1. Wang Xian didn't like things to drag on in whatever he did. Since he had verified where the culprit had appeared, he would want to resolve this matter quickly. Heavenly Sound Sect. Wang Xian pondered for a while before asking, among the sacred sects, what's the strength level of the Heavenly Sound Sect? Among the 8 sacred sects, the strength of the Heavenly Sound Sect is ranked 5th in the underworld. It isn't particularly strong but definitely not weak, replied Mo Qinglong. The 8 sacred sects and 5 sacred clans were the 13 strongest forces in China. Every force had a peerless expert that could send tremors to the entire underworld with a stomp of their foot. Heavenly Sound Sect was located in Ning City. Wang Xian and the group had been there once. There wasn't any direct flight from Rivertown to Ning City. If they were to travel by car, it would take at least 8 to 9 hours. It's already past 2 in the morning. When we get to Ning City, it will be close to noon. Wang Xian looked at the time on his watch and had no intention of wasting any time. We will head there right away. Both of you, come with me. Let Mo Shiwu attend to the matters of the spiritual island. Besides that, get the Abyss along. This time, he was prepared to do this under the identity of the Abyss. Wang Xian still did not wish to enter into direct confrontation with a sacred sect. Moreover, with his current strength, he wouldn't be a match for a sacred clan unless they were in the seas. On land, his battle prowess was similar to a Dan realm expert. After witnessing the strength of Sui Huang from the Sui family, Wang Xian conjectured that there would also be Dan realm experts within these sacred sects and clans. Moreover, a sacred sect had a lot more inborn realm experts than Wang Xian. Since the Abyss was already known throughout the underworld, it didn't matter if their name got a little more publicity. Wang Xian revealed a faint smile. Since eliminating the Dark Conjurers, the Abyss was widely recognized as the strongest assassin group in the underworld. There were even some members of the underworld who believed that they possessed the strength of a sacred sect and was the most horrifying uprising force at this moment. Let's return immediately. Wang Xian said to Mo Qinglong and Mo Yuan. Yes, young master. The two of them nodded their heads. Wang Xian hesitated for a while, returned to the treasure room and took Zhan Lu and Hao Zhong with him. Her zither was destroyed because of me previously. I shall compensate her with this. At the thought of the cold expression of Tang Yinxian with her broken zither, he shook his head slightly. Holding Zhan Lu and Hao Zhong, Wang Xian headed towards the shore. A short distance away, a yacht awaited him in the middle of the sea. Other than his yacht, there were over 20 ships in the surroundings. Wang Xian jumped into the air and landed on one of the ships. He collected it as resources for his dragon palace before doing the same for the rest of the ships. Wang Xian felt it was a little wasteful to convert these ships directly into resources. When he returned to his yacht, Wang Xian placed the zither in his room. Lying on the bed, he soon fell asleep. The yacht moved rapidly. When he arrived at Rivertown, dawn had broken. Wang Xian hesitated for a moment. In the end, he did not make a trip back home first. Instead, he got Mo Qinglong to drive the caravan towards Ning City directly. When they arrived at Ning City, it was already noon. The 7 Dragonians from the Abyss had arrived before them. Wang Xian took out his phone, hesitating for a moment before dialing a number. Hello. You. From the other end of the phone call, a pleasing voice sounded. It was clear that she was shocked too. At this moment, Tang Yinxian was in a 5-star hotel in Ning City. Around the hotel, the disciples of the Heavenly Sound Sect were hosting a banquet. A 1.8-meter-tall young man stood in the middle of the field. He was wearing a set of exquisite and traditional clothing, just like a prince in ancient times. He stood proudly with his chest up and a cup of red wine in his hand. A group of good-looking men and ladies surrounded him and were constantly showering him with compliments and pleasantries. The young man was the saint of the Heavenly Sound Sect. He had just emerged victorious from the selection today and would likely become the future elder or even sect leader of the Heavenly Sound sect. Tang Yinxian took a glance at the saint in the banquet before walking to a corner of the banquet. That young man had actually called her. She could still feel the palpitations and shock at the thought of the news she came across 2 days after she returned to the sect. At that time, the strength that the young man had demonstrated greatly shocked her. However, all her attention was on her broken zither. When she heard that the abyss had annihilated the dark conjurers, she stared blankly into space for over 10 minutes. She knew that the young man was taking revenge for his subordinates. After luring out the assassins of the dark conjurers and getting some clues, he went to annihilate the entire dark conjurer organization. In that case, the assassin group, the abyss, was most likely his. Even a sacred sect had to be careful when dealing with the dark conjurers. However, the dark conjurers were easily annihilated by the abyss. And now, the abyss was classified as one of the existences that one shouldn't mess with. Recalling that young man and the abyss, which was in the limelight recently, she felt conflicted. Tang Yinxian, I'm in Ning City. Are you free now? I'm sorry about your zither previously. Therefore, I brought you something this time. The voice of that young man sounded from the other end of the phone. This shocked Tang Yinxian. She frowned, hesitated for a while and nodded her head before answering, yeah, where are you now? LZZ International Hotel. LZZ? Tang Yinxian was taken aback. That's the hotel she was in currently. Tell me about your exact location. I'll look for you immediately. I'm in a corner of the restaurant lobby. Alight, wait there for me. I'll be right there. Tang Yinxian didn't reject Wang Xian. She was still curious about that mysterious and insanely powerful young man. Now that he said he had something for her, she would like to take a look. Tang Yinxian hung up the phone. She hesitated for a moment before heading for the exit. Junior sister Yinxian, where are you going? At this moment, a voice sounded behind her. Tang Yinxian frowned slightly but forced a faint smile out. Saint. She bowed respectfully and continued, I have some urgent matters and have to go out for a while. Oh. What urgent matters does junior sister have to leave in such a hurry? Are you worried about the selection tomorrow? The young man had a cup of wine in his hand and exhibited strong confidence. The vibes around him were something that even famous male stars couldn't match. Yeah. Tang Yinxian nodded her head customarily. There are some things I have to get prepared. Junior sister, if you agree to what I've suggested, I'll lend you the Sky Devil Zither. The young man stared at Tang Yinxian intensely. Thank you, Saint, for your kind intentions. I have some urgent matters to attend to and shall leave now. Once again, let me congratulate you on becoming the saint. Tang Yinxian frowned slightly, gestured and left. Saint, hasn't Tang Yinxian agreed to be your girl? What an arrogant girl. With her current standing, she's not qualified to be with you. That's right. Our saint is exceptional and will definitely become the management of the Heavenly Sound sect in the future. For that Tang Yinxian, her chances of becoming the saintess tomorrow couldn't exceed 10%. Senior sister who has over an 80% chance of becoming the saintess. Moreover, senior sister who is the daughter of our vice sect leader and is interested only in you. I feel that senior sister who is a better match for our saint. Behind them, a group walked forward and spoke to the saint after hearing his conversation with Tang Yinxian. Enough. Chapter 321, A Zither as a Gift, 2. Seeing that the saint had turned restless, the crowd went silent in an instant. Some of the female disciples looked at Tang Yinxian from the back with faces of envy. How does a lass like you with no prominent background deserve favor from the saint? With curiosity in mind, Tang Yinxian walked towards the reception of the hotel restaurant. In favor of the saint's kindness, she paid no attention to the commotion behind. She had not been supported by such strong backing at Heavenly Sound sect. She had been discovered by a half-step and born from the sect by chance, and taken in as a disciple from there. Through her own efforts, she had ascended to become one of the top disciples in a short span of just over a decade. Yet, despite having achieved her current status as a half-step and born, she was not very confident in the face of the assessment today. Given that even the granddaughter of the vice sect leader also had to vie for the position of saintess these days, her master too had little confidence in her becoming one. She was bound to lose, should there be a competitor whose natural abilities were paralleled with hers, but came supported by rich resources and strong backing. This was something Tang Yinxian had found hard to concede. "Where are they?" Tang Yinxian asked as she came to the restaurant entrance. She swept a glance inside and saw a familiar figure at the far end. Walking over, Tang Yinxian looked at the party's surroundings. He was seated alone, whereas another two familiar figures sat at a table nearby. "Our lovely Tang Yinxian, to think you made it here so quickly." Wang Xian greeted with a smile, waving as he saw Tang Yinxian approaching. The delicacies on the table had remained untouched. Alongside lay a precious sword and a box, where the latter resembled a zither casing. Somewhat doubtful, Tang Yinxian looked at Wang Xian and asked, "Young Master Wang, may I know the purpose of you asking me over?" With a warm smile, the current Wang Xian appeared gentlemanly and dashing. In fact, he looked much more elegant than the current saint. But Tang Yinxian knew better. This young man standing before her was highly likely to be the leader of the Abyss, the organization feared by many. Mainly to apologize over the issue of the zither from before. Wang Xian explained. He noticed that Tang Yinxian was not carrying any zither on her back. Likely to say, she had not found another one worth bringing around, after the one gifted by her late mother was ruined. "You don't have to," Tang Yinxian declined upon the mention of zither. With a cold expression, she remained standing instead of sitting down. Seeing her slightly glum face, Wang Xian shook his head. "I went to Ning City to settle some matters. It so happened that I obtained a zither yesterday, but I've got no use for it. So I'm giving it to you," he chirped. As he explained, he retrieved the zither of Hao Zhong and placed it in front of Tang Yinxian. "I don't suppose you'll want to chat with me while standing. I was the reason why your zither was ruined. So here's one to make it up to you," he added. Tang Yinxian hesitated for a moment, before she seated herself across from Wang Xian and nodded. "I'll decline the zither. Since you've helped to elevate my cultivation, we're even," she said in return. Wang Xian muttered as he rested his back on the chair. "Take it. Having accepted $2 billion from you and being your bodyguard for several days. We're actually more indebted to you, to be exact." Wang Xian persuaded. Tang Yinxian procrastinated briefly, and looked at the zither on the table before shaking her head. "I've already got one," she rejected again. "Just take it as you're told. Accept it so we can call it even." Wang Xian persisted. With a tinge of dominance, Wang Xian placed the zither at a spot nearer Tang Yinxian. "We may not be close. But even so, I don't wish to owe anyone anything," he continued. After which, he gestured towards the food on the table. "Have you eaten? If you haven't, let me give you a treat," he invited. Lifting an eyebrow, Tang Yinxian nodded in reply, "Sure." She picked the zither up and placed it on her side, before picking up the cutlery and starting to eat. Wang Xian took a look at her before starting on his meal. Neither Tang Yinxian nor Wang Xian had uttered a word then. It was an admiration of aesthetics which Wang Xian had towards Tang Yinxian and her melodic voice. Other than that, he had no ulterior motives. As Tang Yinxian was a very slow eater, she had yet to be done even long after Wang Xian had finished eating. He played on his mobile phone, and had no interaction with her. It was a rather rare sight. A handsome man and beautiful lady seated together in a corner, having a meal, but with no interaction throughout otherwise. "I'm going off," Tang Yinxian said to Wang Xian upon finishing her meal. "Sure. It's already after 10. Time for me to head back and turn in as well. Wang Xian replied, smiling. Tang Yinxian looked at him with doubt before picking up the zither on her side. Carrying the zither on her back, she headed for the exit. Wang Xian walked alongside Tang Yinxian while holding his long sword. Once again, there was no interaction between them whatsoever. Both of them had just stepped out of the restaurant, when they heard a few shocked voices coming at them. Oh! It's Junior Sister Tang, a voice called. It's Junior Tang indeed. Junior, didn't you say you were leaving early for an urgent matter? Another asked. Tang Yinxian stood dazed for a moment as Wang Xian remained by her side. Slightly taken aback, he too looked over at the crowd with gleaming eyes. A figure emerged in his mind, which stood in contrast to the group ahead. There's a guy with her. Hey, look everyone. Junior Tang's carrying a new zither on her back, someone in the crowd exclaimed. Who's that young man? Another asked. The group of disciples from the Heavenly Sound sect stared at Tang Yinxian in utter confusion. Tang Yinxian had left the saint's feast earlier in a hurry. Little would anyone expect to see her meeting a young man here. There seemed to be more than meets the eye with what was going on. Upon seeing Tang Yinshuan's look of shock, which was soon followed by a frown, the saint, who was walking in the middle, withdrew his smile. He scanned Wang Xian over before turning to Tang Yinxian, and asking coolly, Junior Yinxian, didn't you say you had something urgent going on? I did, my friend wanted to give me this zither as a present. So I'm here to collect it. Tang Yinxian explained and met them with a calm look. Oh. What zither is that? Senior's curious now, Junior. You've even rejected my Sky Devil zither. I'm curious to find out which zither your friend has gifted you with, the saint refuted. As he smiled coldly, the saint turned to look at Wang Xian. He raised his head slightly and stared down at Wang Xian snobbishly. Who's this friend of yours here? I'm the saint of the Heavenly Sound sect, he announced. Just a nobody, here to present a zither as a gift. Wang Xian replied plainly as he looked at the saint. Ha! No names mentioned, huh? By all means. I won't remember it anyway, the saint smirked. Junior sister, what good zither can a nobody gift you with? Consider my offer. After all, it's your most crucial selection test tomorrow, he advised Tang Yinxian. Dismissing the saint's words, Tang Yinxian looked on with a face of dismay and annoyance. She turned to check on Wang Xian, to see if he had been offended. A nobody. This gentleman here is most likely the leader of the abyss. How does that make him a nobody? Right now, she was more afraid of Wang Xian, for fear that he may strike at this saint any moment and finish him off. After all, she was not sure if Wang Xian would be mindful towards a saint from the Heavenly Sound sect. There's no need for that. But I'm thankful for your kind intentions, Senior. As for tomorrow, I'll leave it to my own fortunes to see if I can make it as the saintess. Tang Yinxian excused herself graciously. Junior Tang, you accepted a gift zither from a nobody right away, but kept turning down the help offered to you by a saint. Isn't this too much? A female disciple snapped. She resented Tang Yinxian with a face green with jealousy. That's right. How can a lousy zither from a nobody compare to the saint's Sky Devil zither? Junior, is there something going on between you and this lad? Another questioned. Chapter 322, Saint. One strike. Several female disciples of the Heavenly Sound sect mocked Tang Yinxian. They looked at her before turning to Wang Xian. When the saint heard what the other disciples had said, he was clearly displeased. He was the saint of the Heavenly Sound sect and had been wooing Tang Yinxian for some time. All the gifts he wished to give to her were rejected. For the saintess selection the next day, he disregarded the possibility of incurring the displeasure of the vice sect leader by wanting to lend his Sky Devil zither to her. In the end, Tang Yinxian rejected all his kindness and accepted a zither from an unknown person. Even he would not believe if one said there was nothing between them. Tang Yinxian heard the ridicule of her peers and was a little embarrassed. Cough cough. At this moment, Wang Xian coughed twice. He looked to the disciples of the Heavenly Sound sect and said, "I'm sorry. If you guys don't know anything, please choose your words wisely. I'm a married man." Wang Xian continued, "A gift from an unknown person might not always be a shitty item. Besides, I have not heard of all your names either." Huh? Wang Xian's response made the crowd of Heavenly Sound sect's disciples raise their eyebrows. They looked at him and started scrutinizing him from top to bottom. "You have not heard of our saint's name? You must be cut off from the world. You can go look him up, the 9th-ranked youth on the Outstanding Young Heroes chart." "Hee hee. You must not have seen the world," a young man said with contempt. "He's just another frog in a well. The only question is which sect he's from. Tell us about it or let us see what you're capable of." The other young men lifted his head slightly and looked mockingly at Wang Xian. "Ha, if there's time, you will naturally be able to see it." Wang Xian smiled and replied with hidden meaning. "It seems like we have someone who is really confident about his strength. Instead of waiting for another day, why don't we do it today? Show us a little." Seeing how casual and relaxed Wang Xian was, the saint revealed a smirk. Moving his arm slightly, a long flute appeared in his hand. The metal flute spun in his hand and pointed at Wang Xian. Metal attribute aura circled the flute, giving off a sharp glow in the process. "This is my secondary weapon, Golden Imperial Flute. Saint, this rascal is clearly acting tough in front of us. How could he possibly compare with you? He's just a nobody who talks louder than what he's capable of. I, your junior brother, can easily defeat him." A young man smiled and looked at Wang Xian when he saw the saint take out his weapon. At this moment, he smiled mockingly and gradually placed both of his hands before his chest. Counter-integral. Suddenly, he chanted some music notes. The devilish music headed towards Wang Xian's ears. Suddenly, strong winds started blowing around them. The chilling cold wind turned into musical notes and struck towards Wang Xian. The young man stared at Wang Xian with a mocking smile. Clearly, he wanted Wang Xian to make a fool out of himself. The surrounding disciples of the Heavenly Sound sect also looked on with ridicule. As disciples of the Heavenly Sound sect, their methods of attacking were creepier than other sections. They could integrate their attribute energies into sounds. A strong and born expert with high music attainments could even make one lose his sense of direction and self. In their view, an unknown rascal tried to act tough in front of them. That would be equivalent to asking them to humiliate him. Crack. At this moment, a crisp sound of a sharp weapon propagated. A stream of metallic energy disintegrated all the wind attribute musical notes and headed for the young man's palm. Arg! The young man cried out pitifully and immediately moved his hands aside. Looking at his own palm, he was horrified. Long and deep wounds had appeared on his palms. They were so deep that one could see the bones. Fresh blood was oozing out from the wound. "You dare to attack me?" The young man revealed a pained expression. He held onto his arm and stared solemnly at Wang Xian. SSS. When the disciples of the Heavenly Sound sect saw the injuries on the young man's hands, they gasped. Their pupils constricted as they stared at Wang Xian. Huh? The saint frowned and murderous intent gleamed in his eyes. He looked at the treasured sword in Wang Xian's hand and commented, "You are pretty strong, but you must be courting death to injure the disciples of the Heavenly Sound sect." As he spoke, he moved the golden imperial flute in his hand and pointed directly at Wang Xian. The next moment, the metal attribute energy shot out. It was the disciple of the Heavenly Sound sect that had started this. However, they ended up chiding Wang Xian. How domineering and unreasonable. "Saint, this is a friend of mine." Tang Yinxian was shocked. She quickly moved to stop the saint from attacking. She was really afraid that the saint would offend Wang Xian and Wang Xian would kill the saint on the spot. Besides that, she was a little surprised by Wang Xian's attribute. If she had remembered things correctly, he was using water attribute attacks while fighting with the assassins from the Dark Conjurer. However, he was using metal attribute attacks currently. Your friend? Seeing Tang Yinxian blocking his attack, the saint's expression turned gloomy. He dares to attack the disciple of the Heavenly Sound sect. As the saint, I have to stand up for them. I'll cripple anyone who dares to injure us. Could it be that you, Tang Yinxian, wish to stop me? As he spoke, he stared harshly at Tang Yinxian. The anger in his heart raged even fiercer. He. You started the fight and yet tried to stop me from retaliating. Saint? I've really not heard of the Saint of the Heavenly Sound sect or the 9th rank existence of the Outstanding Young Heroes chart. In my eyes, Saint. He. One strike is enough. Seeing the young man before him trying to attack him, Wang Xian's expression turned chilly. He lifted Zhan Lu in his right hand. Dang! TSK. I'll let you know the consequences of being arrogant and talking big in front of me. Seeing that Wang Xian wanted to retaliate, murderous intent gleamed in the saint's eyes. He waved the golden imperial flute in his hand. Woo woo. As the air entered the long flute, rapid notes were made. A sharp metallic edge shot towards Wang Xian. Dang! However, Wang Xian drew Zhan Lu partially out at this moment. The intense metallic edge on it formed a razor-sharp golden sword. Before the sword left the scabbard, the glow of the sword had already been shot forward as an attack. The metallic edge from the golden imperial flute vibrated a little in the air before disintegrating rapidly. As for the sword glow of Zhan Lu, it slashed towards the golden imperial flute in the saint's hand. Pa! Before the saint could react to it, the sword glow had split the golden imperial flute and was striking towards his shoulders. What? The saint was horrified. He immediately dodged to the side. However, the razor-sharp sword glow still landed on his shoulders. Instantly, his clothes were dyed red from blood. Pa! The golden imperial flute split in the middle and fell to the ground, giving off a crisp voice. One strike was enough to split the weapon of the Saint of the Heavenly Sound sect and injured the saint. Trash! Wang Xian kept Zhan Lu away and looked nonchalantly at the crowd. Without having to pull Zhan Lu completely out of the scabbard, their saint was already injured by it. We will meet again if fate dictates. Wang Xian looked at Tang Yinxian and spoke with a smile. After which, he turned around and left, as he felt disinterested. Tang Yinxian stood rooted to the ground. After which, she turned to look at the figure behind her. Chapter 323, Appearance of Hao Zhong and the Soundless Instrument, 1. Insolence, blatant insolence. How dare you injure me? How dare you do this to a saint of the sacred sect, the saint growled. With a deathly stare, he glared ahead at Wang Xian, who was leaving. The contempt and the look of disregard made Wang Xian appear all the more indifferent. Leave your name. In no time, I'll slaughter you, with my own bare hands, the saint called out harshly as he watched Wang Xian from behind. Upon hearing the saint, Wang Xian stopped short and turned around to look at the young man. You've lost your chance, he mocked. In a fit of anger, the saint snapped in a grimace as his eyes filled with bloodthirst. He took a quick look at his arm and called out, I'll kill you soon enough. Wang Xian looked back at the saint. Smiling, he beamed with a glimmer in his eyes before turning to leave. Saint, are you all right? A voice asked. Saint, let me have a look at your injuries. I have some elixir pills with me, another called out in concern. The crowd of disciples had barely recovered from shock. To think that the saint had been injured by a nobody with one mere strike. Just how could this be? I'm all right, the saint brushed them aside. With a glum face, he took one look at the injuries on his shoulders. As he watched Wang Xian leave, a young man tried to appease the saint. Saint, had the lad not snuck an attack, and had you brought your sky devil zither along, you would have maimed such a lad easily, he flattered. Humph, the saint replied impassively. Displeased, he looked at Tang Yinxian and pressed her for an answer. Who is he? Which sect or clan is he from? Upon hearing the saint's words, Tang Yinxian furrowed her brows and shook her head. Saint, I have something to attend to. I'll return to the sect now, she replied before making a direct exit. Hold it right there, Tang Yinxian. The saint is asking you a question, a female disciple of the Heavenly Sound sect yelled at Tang Yinxian. Ignoring the call, Tang Yinxian excused herself again. Apologies, saint. I'm feeling unwell. So I'll head back to rest, she said before hastening her steps. Feeling helpless, she sighed softly as she rushed back to the sect. Well, this Tang Yinxian, the saint rebuked. As he watched Tang Yinxian disappear gradually, he headed straight for the exit with a steely expression. Saint, a few disciples called out with unease. Go, get me details of the lad's identity, the saint ordered one of them as he turned his head back. Yes, saint, the crowd of disciples replied hurriedly, shocked by the comment. The saint of a sacred sect is not someone to be trifled with. Offenders shall die. As Wang Xian entered the presidential suite, he was immediately welcomed by Mo Qinglong, Mo Yuan and 7 Dragonians. Young master, they greeted respectfully. Just place the information you've got over there. Wang Xian replied. Acknowledging the gang with a wave, he picked up the documents and headed for the bedroom. Noted. Mo Qinglong and gang nodded, before they headed outside. Meanwhile, a worn-out Tang Yinxian returned to her room, located atop the 9th summit of Ning City's 9 Peaks mountain. As she placed the zither on the desk, she looked to the side, where 2 zither rested. One of them was covered in cracks, and bore obvious signs of repair. But repaired zither could no longer be used. As for the other zither, it boasted an all-green body which exuded both extravagance and beauty. This was a zither gifted to her by her master. This green zither had been obtained by her master at an overly exorbitant price. According to her master, it was a level 6 zither. As with all things in life, even weapons are classified by levels, as they are graded similarly to humans. In fact, where grading is concerned, only the classification of spiritual grasses and elixir pills differ vastly from the others. Weapons are graded in ascending levels. And where a weapon has surpassed level 9, it would then be named a metamortal spiritual weapon, also known as an inborn spiritual weapon. Inborn spiritual weapons possess a spirituality of their own. When a weapon ascends to such a level, it gains unimaginable powers. Take the ancient sword of Zhan Lu which Wang Xian now owned, for instance. It is no sword to be owned by mere mortals, given that it possesses energy of the gold summit. An average martial artist could even be killed by the sword simply by holding it. Similarly, an expert martial artist of level 8 or above could challenge someone at superseding levels, simply by wielding the sword. So much so that a level 9 martial artist could kill a half-step inborn with the Zhan Lu sword in hand, which is what makes an inborn spiritual weapon so formidable. That said, inborn spiritual weapons were few and far between in the current world, as there were barely any blacksmiths left. Along with the art of equipment refining being long lost, all current renowned weapons were the ones passed down from ancient times. Thus, this level 6 green zither gifted by her master was incredibly rare. Tang Yinxian looked at the casing which held the zither from Wang Xian. Its appearance was very common, and it even bore a trademark. Ling Yin. Tang Yinxian chimed, giggling as she looked at the trademark brand. Ling Yin was currently one of the top zither brands. An exquisitely customized zither could cost tens of thousands, while the pricier ones could even fetch more than $1 million. Yet, in her eyes, these supposedly branded zither were no different from the ordinary ones. They could not compare to the green zither gifted to her by her master, which currently rested by her side. To think an invincible expert of his times is this insincere. How miserly. Tang Yinxian pouted, looking really adorable. It appeared she would only reveal this endearing side of her when she was alone. How ordinary it is. It's also an ordinary zither which mother gifted me, she presumed. She had been prepared to reject this gift from the start, and hence gave little thought to Wang Xian's intentions. As she opened the casing, a simple yet classic-looking garnet zither emerged before her. Written on it were several traditional characters. On the center of the zither were 2 enlarged characters. Stupefied, Tang Yinxian stared at the 2 characters in a daze. Hao Zhong, she mumbled, repeating the name. Astounded, her face twitched in shock. She placed her hands on the zither immediately. Zing, ring, ring. Suddenly, a melodic note rang through her mind. She shuddered as though she had heard heavenly music. In an instant, she felt as though she was bursting with energy. Her vision became crystal clear, while the spiritual energy in her circled frantically. Hao Zhong. To think it's the zither of Hao Zhong. Tang Yinxian shook at the thought. She caressed the zither with trembling hands, sensing each chord as she went, her eyes filled with disbelief. Hao Zhong, the world's #1 zither. Used by the top zither artist in history, Master Boya. Subsequently passed on to Duke Huan of Qi, leader of the 5 hegemons during the spring and autumn period. Deafening as it plays, the zither chimes clear like a bell and trumpets like a blowing horn. Legend has it that the Duke played music on the zither during a war to boost morale. And because of that, he emerged victorious and rose to become leader of the 5 hegemons. Tang Yinxian murmured incessantly with burning passion in her eyes. Hao Zhong, the legendarian-born spiritual weapon. To think that this, she uttered under her breath. Gradually, she began to recollect herself as she continued to caress the zither. Just then, a thought came to her mind, and she flipped the zither over immediately. On the bottom hung an exquisite, long scarlet sword. It was known as the enchantment sword. Tang Yinxian bit her lip, blushing as her eyes glinted. To think that a married man would do something like this? At this very moment, a woman on the main peak of the 9 Peaks mountain opened her eyes abruptly. What's that sound? Could it be the heavenly sound zither? It doesn't sound like. The woman stood up, closed her eyes and wanted to listen attentively. However, the same sound did not come again. In the end, she sat back down, feeling baffled. Feng Tianhua became the saint yesterday. I wonder who will become the saintess today. Do you even need to ask about this? It will definitely be Senior Sister Hu. Senior Sister Hu is now a half-step to Inborn Realm expert and possesses the level 7 ancient temple zither. Among the female disciples, she tops in terms of strength. It's still hard to tell. Tang Yinxian, Feng Jiuhua and Ouyang Yan have all reached the half-step to Inborn Realm. They are also strong contenders. In my opinion, Senior Sister Hu's chances of winning are at least 80%. Strength is just one aspect and you should consider their influence too. Many people are supporting Senior Sister Hu now. Moreover, Senior Sister Hu has 2 half-step to Inborn Realm subordinates. One of them even made it to the top 20 of the Outstanding Young Heroes chart. When the sun had risen, the disciples of the Heavenly Sound sect made their way towards the main training field. On their way there, the disciples were discussing fervently. However, they weren't too concerned about what had caused their musical instruments to go soundless. Tang Yinxian carried 2 zither as she made her way to the main training field. Along the way, the other disciples greeted her respectfully. There were also some disciples who simply gave her a cold glare. The main training field of the Heavenly Sound sect lay in the middle of the 9 Peaks mountain. The Heavenly Sound sect didn't particularly have lots of disciples. For young men and women, there were only approximately 1,000 of them. They had exceptional demeanors and were either handsome or beautiful. In terms of looks, the disciples of the Heavenly Sounds sect were all outstanding. Despite that, Tang Yinxian still shone brightly with her exceptional vibes and exquisite looks. The disciples of the Heavenly Sounds sect arrived at the training field one after another. They stood in an orderly fashion around it while waiting patiently. The arrival of Tang Yinxian had drawn the attention of many people. Other than her, there were also a few other girls who were exceptionally attention-grabbing. "Senior sister who is here?" At this moment, a scream came from the crowd. Everyone looked over and saw an alluring young lady with an enchanting figure walking towards the training field. She was dressed in black and looked just like a succubus in the night. Every action of hers drew the attention of all the men in the field. A large number of male disciples couldn't help but swallow their saliva. She was one of the few disciples that practiced the Fei Fei demonic note. Two young men followed behind the young lady proudly. Despite being surrounded by outstanding disciples of the Heavenly Sound sect, they were still carrying a slight sense of superiority. Take a look. Senior sister who didn't bring her ancient temple zither along but another zither instead. That's true. It looks a little ordinary. However, with senior sister whose strength, others wouldn't be a match for her even if she used an ordinary zither. The saint is here. At this moment, the saint, who was dressed in elegant Heavenly Sounds sect's traditional costume, walked out proudly. Over a dozen disciples followed behind him deferentially. The saint's face looked devoid of expressions and seemed exceptionally cold, callous but exceptional. "Saint," the surrounding crowd greeted the saint respectfully. The saint nodded his head faintly, walked to a seat below the stage and sat down. This was a seat reserved for the higher management of the Heavenly Sounds sect, and the saint naturally was qualified to have a seat too. Soon, the elders, vice sect leader and sect leader of the Heavenly Sounds sect arrived at the training field. Chapter 325, Appearance of Hao Zhong and the Soundless Instrument, 3. "Greetings, sect leader," the disciples greeted as they bowed to an elder who was gradually making his way to the central seat. As he lifted an arm, the leader of the Heavenly Sounds sect swept his glance across everyone present, and began to speak. Meanwhile, 10 masked men from the abyss emerged in a secluded corner just outside of the Nine Peaks mountain. These 10 men were none other than Wang Xian and his gang. The information which Mo Yuan and the rest had obtained did not seem out of the ordinary. In addition, as a sacred sect, the Heavenly Sounds sect had managed to cover their tracks well enough. Hence, the group could only sneak their way in by means of their incredible abilities and combat powers. The Heavenly Sounds sect is unlike the Flame Palace. As a long-established sacred sect, their defense is no doubt more complicated than one can imagine. Wang Xian explained. After which, Wang Xian and gang peered at the 9 gigantic summits with heavy looks on their faces. Yet, other than its impressive heights and majestic beauty, one could barely detect any sense of danger from the 9 summits. They seemed to be nothing more than 9 ordinary mountains. Yet, it was the seeming mediocrity of the mountains which cautioned the group. After all, the Heavenly Sounds sect was not the Flame Palace, hence its defense was anything but simple. Wang Xian gazed at the 9 typical mountains ahead as he narrowed his eyes. In a quick movement, he changed his position and hopped onto a tree along the fringes of the mountain. Tweet, tweet. Just then came a chirp from a tree branch beside Wang Xian. It was a bird, staring intently at Wang Xian as it called out. Soon after, the little bird flew towards the 9 Peaks mountain and within its vicinity. Huh! Wang Xian frowned in confusion. With quick reflexes, the power of the divine dragon oozed out of him and overshadowed the surroundings. Tweet, tweet. The little bird flapped its wings as hard as it could, before it flopped onto the ground. So that's how they work. Wang Xian exclaimed in realization. With a grin, he continued, no doubt a sacred clan. Even the mode of defense is beyond expectations. Wang Xian observed his surroundings, and noticed an overwhelming number of nests. These bird nests came in all sorts, and had settled on the branches of trees all over Nine Peaks Mountain. He even briefly spotted a nest which spanned about 6 to 7 meters across, located thousands of meters away. With such a gigantic nest, one can easily imagine the size of the bird settling in it. It must be a flying bird of the inborn level. The Heavenly Sounds sect has resorted to using flying birds as implicit sentinels numbering up to the tens of thousands. Perhaps even the millions. Seems like there's no way of hiding any entry into the sect grounds, Wang Xian assessed. He was mildly impressed by the sect, which no doubt deserved its sacred status. By using millions of birds as surveillance, even a mosquito flying in would be clear for all to see. That said, these birds can't be that intelligent. They also possess obvious shortcomings. Wang Xian exclaimed with a faint smile, while Mo Qinglong and the rest scurried over. Let's go. Wang Xian directed. But, as he was about to make a move, a bunch of tree branches clung onto Wang Xian and Gang, twining them in like saplings. In one leap, he sprung forward. The birds around looked over in curiosity. But they soon became indifferent once again, and continued to chirp incessantly while resting on the branches. They were, after all, ordinary birds with low intelligence. To the extent that some of them had no idea as to why these few saplings could actually move. The 10 men shot through the Nine Peaks Mountain at lightning speed, and in no time arrived at the peak of one of the mountains. Over there. Wang Xian pointed as he narrowed his focus. In a flash, he landed mid-mountain on one of the nearest summits, and stared coldly at the training field. Meanwhile, at the training field, a girl dressed in all black was suspended in mid-air with a black devil zither. Across from her stood another girl with a refined and graceful face. Panicking while cold sweat trickled down her forehead, the young maiden clung onto her pipa as she battled the girl dressed in black. Standing beside Wang Xian, Mo Qinglong looked at the training field, where Hu Qingqing was. That's the girl, Hu Qingqing. Based on the most confidential information from the Dark Conjurers, she's the one who issued the assassination orders. Mo Qinglong pointed out coldly. Not only did she order to have Tang Yinxian killed, she's also involved in 2 other missions, alongside that young man standing at the fringe. The other 2 assassinations were carried out successfully, he added. Wang Xian surveyed the girl in black, who boasted a charming face and a glamorous figure. How unscrupulous. Resorting to killing a fellow sect member for the saintess position. Vile is a woman's heart, more poisonous than a viper's bite or a hornet's sting. Wang Xian said coldly as he observed. Thereafter, he swept his gaze across and counted silently. There are a total of 7 inborn experts, with more absent. They've either hidden themselves within the Nine Peaks Mountain, or gone traveling. Wang Xian contemplated in silence. Just 7 inborn experts alone was a handful. Moreover, members of the Heavenly Sounds sect were known for their incredible combat powers and powerful attacks. However, Wang Xian and Gang had not come to annihilate the Heavenly Sounds sect. Rather, they were just here to kill Hu Qingqing. In addition, they need not clash with the sect. Young master, should we just charge over and slaughter her right away? Mo Qinglong asked as he stood beside Wang Xian. Kill. Wang Xian ordered. He had just uttered the word, when he looked below and froze in his tracks. Hold on, he shouted. Yep. Mo Qinglong and the rest nodded in response, and hid away quietly. Senior sister who's too powerful. She's holding the legendary Copperhead Viper Zither in her hands. That's a level 9 Zither. Goodness, where did she get that from? An audience member gasped from amidst the crowd. A level 9 Zither, plus senior whose prowess as a half-step inborn, in addition to the unique art of cultivation of our Heavenly Sound sect, senior who's almost unrivaled amongst the half-step inborns, another added. Seems like it's more or less decided that senior who will become the saintess. She's too powerful. To think that senior sister Fang Jiu was totally defenseless against her, one more chipped in. It feels like senior whose prowess is about to overpower the saints, a last commented. And there was Hu Qingqing, standing on the stage. With a charming smile, she fought on without a care in the world. Around the training field, the crowd of disciples watched on in shock and admiration all at once. The senior management of the Heavenly Sounds sect also gazed at Hu Qingqing, pleased with her performance. The prowess she displayed was simply impressive. The Copperhead Viper Zither's a level 9 Zither. It's enough to qualify as the third most powerful Zither within our Heavenly Sounds sect. To think that Qingqing managed to obtain it, a senior praised. I'm taken by surprise too. The Copper Viper Zither along with Qingqing's Fei demonic note. She'll be unrivaled in the world of Inborns, another commented. Congratulations, Vice Sect Leader. You found a successor, a third cheered. On the stage, several elders chatted in whispers to the Vice Sect Leader. Seated in the middle, the Vice Sect Leader responded with a hearty laugh. His granddaughter would soon ascend to become the Saintess. On the training field, Hu Qingqing eyed Tang Yinxian coldly. A look of disdain swept across the former's eye as she glanced at the latter's green zither. Tang Yinxian, just concede defeat. You're no match for me. Nor are you qualified to exchange blows with me. Hu Qingqing gloated. Tang Yinxian had been in another battle earlier, where she had defeated Ouyang Yan using her green zither. And although her skills were up to par, it had taken her a long time before she emerged victorious in the battle. This was a huge contrast to Hu Qingqing's easy win. Let's have a fair competition, where both of us will use an ordinary zither. Tang Yinxian suggested to Hu Qingqing in a composed manner. Ha! Fair competition, using an ordinary zither. Tang Yinxian, are you kidding me? Hu Qingqing laughed. Chapter 326, If the Abyss wants you dead, you definitely will be, 1. A peal of hysterical laughter broke out from Hu Qingqing. Although her laughter was exaggerated, her alluring voice with her trembling enchanting figure made it hard for one to find it annoying. Instead, seductive vibes came from her. Hu Qingqing laughed loudly before looking to Tang Yinxian again and saying, Tang Yinxian, you must be acting naive. Strength includes weapons, cultivation arts, and cultivation realm. You want a fair battle? Hee hee. What a joke. As she completed her words, she played her Copperhead Viper Zither lightly. Instantly, several demonic snakes appeared before it. I have gone through great lengths to get this Copperhead Viper Zither. You want me to compete fairly with you without it? Hee hee. Ridicule sounded and the surrounding people looked at Tang Yinxian with doubts. Cough cough. Tang Yinxian is really something to raise a request like this. She's really shameless. Ha, that's right. This is the most interesting request I have heard. A fair battle in her view is to restrict her opponent from bringing out a powerful weapon? I'm really impressed. The thickness of Tang Yinxuan's skin is something we couldn't compare with. She's simply shameless. I'm speechless. To obtain the position of the Saintess, she actually raised such a hilarious condition. This Tang Yinxian must be crazy. She couldn't make it. I have long heard that Tang Yinxian rarely interacts with others. It will seem like she's most likely an idiot to raise such a request. Around the training field, the disciples of the Heavenly Sounds sect didn't attempt to hide their ridicule after hearing Tang Yinxuan's request. Based on the current situation, senior sister who would be certain to inherit the position of Saintess. Therefore, the surrounding disciples weren't wary of Tang Yinxian at all. Furthermore, they might be able to get on the good books of senior sister who by doing so. Ha! Tang Yinxian, you are really interesting. Weapons are naturally a part of one's strength. You want a fair battle? You are really hilarious. Read more chapter on VIP novel. Calm, at this moment, the saint who was seated commented. He looked mockingly at Tang Yinxian and continued, "You don't have a good zither and so you want to restrict others from using one. TSK. This thought is shameless." "That's right. What a naive thought. Senior sister who has a level 9 unique zither and yet you want her to compete with you on an ordinary zither? In a life and death battle, will one put aside such a unique zither and compete with you on an ordinary zither?" A young man standing beside the saint seconded and piled on the ridicules. The saint's expression turned callous. He mumbled softly, "If I lend you my level 7 Sky Devil zither, you might still have a slimmer of hope. If you use that level 6 zither, your chances of becoming the saintess are 0. Oh, Tang Yinxian, you really don't know what's best for you. When I get the information on the brat that gave you the zither, I'll let him experience pain worse than death. The selection of the saintess is to show the wisdom, strength, guts, and means of the future saintess. You can keep such a laughable request to yourself." The vice sect leader seated on the stage looked proudly at her own granddaughter before glancing coldly at Tang Yinxian. "If you know what's best for you, admit your defeat immediately. If you continue, I'll defeat you. You aren't qualified to compete for the position of saintess with me," Hu Qingqing said to Tang Yinxian with contempt. When Tang Yinxian heard the ridicules from the surrounding disciples, she was taken aback. A cold light flashed in her eyes. "In that case, I would like to seek guidance about your strength." Just as she finished her words, she placed her green zither aside. Carrying the other zither, she jumped and landed in the middle of the training field. She stood in the middle of the training field, tapped her arms lightly and the zither box behind her appeared in front of her. "What? Look at the logo on the zither box. Isn't that just an ordinary brand available everywhere?" "It is. Could it be that Tang Yinxian has given up on using the level 6 green zither and is choosing to use an ordinary zither instead? She's probably worried that the Copperhead Viper zither will destroy her level 6 green zither. After all, that was the best zither Tang Yinxian could come up with. That's highly likely." When the surrounding crowd saw the logo and brand on Tang Yinxuan's zither box, they started looking at her with mocking eyes, insulting her. "Hee hee. What a waste of my time." Hu Qingqing looked at the zither box in front of Tang Yinxian. Coldness gleamed in her eyes as she said nonchalantly, "Within 5 moves, I will destroy your zither." "I hope so." Tang Yinxian was nonchalant about the ridicules from the crowd and Hu Qingqing. She tapped the box lightly and sent it flying down. "Please enlighten me." When Hao Zhong appeared before Tang Yinxian, her entire demeanor underwent huge changes. Cold, prideful with a tinge of holiness. She placed her slender fingers on Hao Zhong. The zither her mother had given her was where she deposited her longing for her mother. As for this dull red Hao Zhong, it was the zither she really liked. "Hee hee. I'll let you witness the might of this legendary zither and hand you a convincing defeat." Hu Qingqing's expression changed as she appeared to have become one with the Copperhead Viper zither. On her arms, music notes coalesced from the demonic aura that was circulating and flowing constantly. "How many strikes do you think senior sister who will need to defeat Tang Yinxian?" "Within 10 strikes. Although Tang Yinxian also possesses half-step to inborn realm strength, the might of the legendary zither isn't something an ordinary zither could possibly match." "Ha, my guess is within 5 strikes. Didn't senior sister who say she would at most take 5 strikes?" Seeing that the battle was about to start soon, the surrounding crowd was thrilled. The saint looked at the middle of the training field and Tang Yinxian emotionlessly. Using an ordinary zither from an unknown and insignificant character against Hu Qingqing with a legendary zither, she must be asking to be shamed. SSS. At this moment, Hu Qingqing started playing. Her 5 fingers appeared to have become demonic claws as they moved rapidly on the Copperhead Viper zither. At that instant, a venomous snake made of eerie and cold energies swept towards Tang Yinxian rapidly from the Copperhead Viper zither. As Hu Qingqing moved her fingers even more quickly, thousands of venomous snakes appeared. They emitted horrifying aura and attacked forward in a wave. Senior sister whose attacks are too strong. Tang Yinxian is likely going to be defeated by this strike. When the surrounding disciples saw what happened, they couldn't help but gasp in awe. Tang Yinxian wasn't flustered at all despite facing a large wave of venomous snakes. She placed her hands on Hao Zhong. Just as the venomous snakes were about to hit her, she played Hao Zhong lightly. Ling. At this instant, the surrounding crowd felt as though a downpour had fallen on them. Sounds of rain resounded in their minds. That wave of demonic snakes was flushed towards the floor and dissipated as though it was made of ink. Chapter 327, If the Abyss wants you dead, you definitely will be, too. Ding-a-ling. The zither began to play, where the notes earlier were just the opening of a tune. Yet, when the music resumed, the crowd realized that the rain they were surrounded by had begun to trickle like a gentle river flowing. A mystifying image appeared in everybody's minds. Just then, Hu Qingqing stood across from the crowd with her eyes wide. Her facial expression changed drastically, as she watched the sight before her in utter disbelief. Her body began to tremble as her face grew dark and gnarly. Her demon claws frantically strummed chords on her copper viper zither, and bouts of demonic aura slithered on the instrument. Hurriedly, the aura gathered and transformed into a demonic snake. Yet, Hu Qingqing was appalled to discover that her recital using the copperhead viper zither had produced not a single sound. As though the flowing waters were the only existence around right there and then. Her face showed an unwillingness to concede defeat. Demonic aura then oozed out from her, forming numerous demonic snakes on the copperhead viper zither. Ah! Hu Qingqing snarled while she arched her head skywards, and puffed out demonic breaths. The demonic breaths too transformed into snakes, and within a short 2 minutes more than 1,000 of them had formed. The demonic snakes exuded a chilling and steely demeanor, and began to attack in Tang Yinxuan's direction. Just then, the streams of flowing water glowed in sapphire and surged straight ahead for the snakes. Once again, the demonic snakes were rendered defenseless. They resembled ink paintings which were watered down and swept clean, as though they had never existed. What's the situation? How did I get immersed in another world? Hu Qingqing shrieked in surprise. Soon after, the crowd of disciples from the Heavenly Sound sect recovered as though they had just regained consciousness. They gazed towards the arena, looking somewhat lost. It's the realm of music. Goodness, to think we've been dragged into a mirage of music, one exclaimed. How is this possible? This can only be achieved if one is an inborn expert of the ancestral clan. Otherwise, who's able to? A second doubted. This sound, goodness, to think senior sister who's been totally suppressed, the third gasped. It was then that everyone focused their attention on the ongoing battle in the training field. They could see Hu Qingqing strumming away at the zither like a prancing maniac, and yet they could not hear the slightest sound. On the contrary, Tang Yinxian rested her fingers on her zither with a look of tranquility while standing across from Hu Qingqing. In a state of serenity, she started playing, and streaks of water flowed gently down the instrument. The snakes released by Hu Qingqing were wiped out by these gentle flows. The crowd also discovered in shock that the training field had been unknowingly submerged in blue waters. The streaks of sapphire flowed like a stream. Meandering its way over, it moved over to Hu Qingqing and began to circle, as though to envelope her. What's this situation? Why can't I hear Senior Hu's melody? There's only the sound of flowing water I hear. What's going on? A voice questioned. Suppression. It's the legendary absolute suppression. The copperhead viper zither's been absolutely suppressed. To the point where its melody has been completely overpowered by that of another zither's, another explained in astonishment. Suppression? How's this possible? The copperhead vipers regarded as a legendary level 9 zither, another argued. A look of disbelief swept over the crowd of disciples. To think that a level 9 zither was unable to produce any notes. This Inborn spiritual weapon. To think it's an inborn spiritual weapon, a voice blurted out. Meanwhile, on stage, the senior management of the Heavenly Sounds sect was startled. Even the sect leader stood up flabbergasted, as they all turned their eyes to the zither alongside Tang Yinxian. What? One gulped. How's this possible? Another gasped in disbelief. A zither that's of the inborn spiritual weapon level. How's this possible? Our entire Heavenly Sounds sect has only got one zither of the inborn level. The Heavenly Sounds zither. To think Tang Yinxian has got one too. The third uttered. If it isn't a zither that's classified as an inborn spiritual weapon, how could it have suppressed the copperhead viper zither like this? The disciples exclaimed at the top of their lungs. Overwhelmed by shock, they stared at the zither in Tang Yinxuan's hands with glistening eyes. That's the zither of Hao Zhong, one of them yelled. To which, Tang Yinxian began playing once again. She strummed her fingers against the strings gently. In an instant, the surrounding waters flowed over in Hu Qingqing's direction, ready to strike. A zither that's classified as an inborn spiritual weapon. An inborn level zither, one shouted. Hu Qingqing's face soured when she heard Tang Yinxuan's melody. She cringed upon seeing that the water flow was coming at her and, with a quick shift, darted for cover. It was then that she looked down at her legs in shock. She was horrified to discover that unbeknownst to her, her legs had been entwined by the water flow. As though caught in a swamp, she was unable to free herself from the entanglement of the water no matter how hard she resisted. Such powerful binding force. Senior Who's losing? She's actually losing, someone choked. It's only been under a minute, and Senior Who's about to be defeated, the second voiced in shock. Hao Zhong. Isn't that the zither of Hao Zhong, the number one zither amongst the legendary top 10? The third exclaimed. To think it's the Hao Zhong, the one regarded as the most powerful of all zither. Its ranking is even above the Heavenly Sound zither, another added. Hao Zhong. To think it's the zither of Hao Zhong, the last choked. Upon hearing her words, and seeing for themselves the attack which Tang Yinxian launched, the crowd was overwhelmed by shock. On stage, the senior management from the Heavenly Sounds sect eyed the zither intently while it lay in front of Tang Yinxian. Hao Zhong, to think it's the Hao Zhong, the leading zither of all, they muttered. A horrid look was plastered across the vice sect leader's face, while his heart ached like it had been stabbed and was dripping blood, as he watched his granddaughter cocooned in the streaks of water. You've been defeated. Tang Yinxian announced before she stopped strumming with her fingers. To which, the sound of flowing water disappeared. The crowd turned their heads immediately, and saw that Hu Qingqing had been wrapped up tightly by the streaks. And even though Hu Qingqing struggled till her face turned crimson, the wrap remained entirely unaffected. Such is the horror of the Hao Zhong, along with its prowess. The crowd watched on dumbfoundedly as the scene unfolded before them. Hu Qingqing had been defeated. Furthermore, the defeat had struck upon her so easily and thoroughly. It was as though Tang Yinxian had barely used any of her combat powers, and delivered a sweeping attack with such ease. Like an adult sparring against a child. Yet, everyone was well aware that Tang Yinxian owed her prowess and dominance to the formidable zither. Zither of Hao Zhong, an inborn spiritual weapon. At the same moment, the crowd recalled the request made by Tang Yinxian prior to the start of the competition, whereby they would compete fairly using only ordinary zither. Back then, everyone had mocked Tang Yinxian for having lost her senses. They also ridiculed her for being thick-skinned by asking her competitor to use an ordinary zither instead of a formidable one, simply because she had none herself. It appeared now that the truth was, in fact, the complete opposite. She had in her hands an inborn level zither, and had been out to compete fairly with Hu Qingqing after all. At the thought, the faces in the crowd sizzled in red. They had gauged the kindness and nobility of others using their own mean measures. How could this be? How could that chap, with nothing to his name, have gifted Tang Yinxian with an inborn level zither. This can't be. It's impossible, the saint uttered as though in a daze. As he did, he focused on the zither that rested in front of Tang Yinxian, remaining seated right behind. Chapter 328, Killing Openly. I admit defeat. On the training field, Hu Qingqing mumbled out 3 words bitterly. Everyone around could hear these words clearly. As she admitted her defeat, the water flow around her dissipated completely. The surrounding disciples of the Heavenly Sounds sect were shocked as they witnessed what had happened. Similarly, members of the higher management of the Heavenly Sounds sect were dumbfounded. They looked intensely at the Haozhong zither in Tang Yinshuan's hands and took a deep breath. Tang Yinxian wins and will succeed as the saintess through her own strength. If anyone isn't satisfied, you may step forward now. The sect leader looked across the crowd and her attention eventually fell on Tang Yinxian and the powerful zither. The surrounding disciples had all quieted down. No one was speaking at this moment. The qualities and strength Tang Yinxian had demonstrated had made these disciples speechless. In fact, she had won many over. At this very moment, the surrounding disciples felt more embarrassment. Recalling the ridicule and mockeries that they made about her previously, they felt flushed. There's no way they could still step forward to object to the outcome. Puff. Hu Qingqing took a deep breath bitterly. I'm not convinced. The selection of the saintess also involves influence and respect from others on top of one's strength. Just as she spoke, the 2 young men who had been standing beside her previously moved and came to Hu Qingqing. A strong aura emanated from them. Hu Qingqing looked at the 2 young men behind her and revealed a faint smile. While I was cultivating diligently for the last 2 years, these 2 half-step to inborn realm experts have followed me. Moreover, they have established a second-class force. Currently, I can mobilize. As Hu Qingqing spoke, she seemed to have regained her confidence of before her defeat. She lifted her chin up and spoke loudly to the crowd. Hua la. However, another voice sounded from above when she was still speaking. All the disciples of the Heavenly Sounds sect were taken aback and lifted their heads in shock. Hu Qingqing was caught by surprise too as she turned towards the source of that voice. The higher management of the Heavenly Sounds sect was surprised and looked coldly towards the sky. A book flew down from the sky and towards the sect leader of the Heavenly Sounds sect. At the same time, 10 men in black uniforms and the abyss masks leapt down from the mountain peak. When the disciples of the Heavenly Sounds sect saw the abyss masks, they were stunned. These masks. They are from the abyss. They are assassins from the abyss. At that instant, the same name flashed across the mind of the disciples. Some even exclaimed out loud. Dressed in black and wearing abyss masks. They are assassins from the abyss. All the disciples were shocked. The abyss was the most horrifying assassination group currently. After annihilating the Dark Conjurers, they were widely regarded by the underworld as being closest to a sacred sect. In fact, many regarded them as a horrifying organization that possessed equivalent strength to a sacred sect. Why would the people from the abyss appear in the Heavenly Sound sect? All the disciples were alerted. They held their weapons tightly in their hands and observed the 10 assassins that had landed in the training field attentively. Rumble. At this moment, all the members of the higher management of the Heavenly Sound sect, who were seated at the elevated stage, stood up. Among them, there were 7 inborn experts. They immediately released horrifying aura and glowered at the 10 assassins from the abyss. Hu Qingqing felt suffocated as she looked in horror at the 10 assassins from the abyss that were standing around her. She didn't dare to say a word at this moment. The 2 young men standing beside her were petrified. They no longer had the arrogant vibes from before and were on alert. Pa! The sect leader of the Heavenly Sounds sect caught the book that was thrown towards him and glanced at Wang Xian and his group. He squinted his eyes and coldness gleamed in them. Assassins from the abyss, "What are you guys here for?" asked the sect leader of the Heavenly Sound sect coldly. "Obviously, to kill someone." Wang Xian looked at the sect leader of the Heavenly Sound sect and didn't attempt to hide his intention at all. "Presumptuous. You dare to barge into the sacred grounds of the Heavenly Sound sect to kill? The abyss is really brazen." When an elder heard Wang Xian's brazen claims, he picked up the long flute weapon coldly and glowered at Wang Xian and the group. Murderous intent gleamed in his eyes. How arrogant and brazen. The sect leader of the Heavenly Sound sect turned gloomy. He held the book and asked coldly, "What is this?" "Take a look and you will know the person we are killing," replied Wang Xian emotionlessly. When his voice came through the mask, it became mechanical and cold. This made the surrounding disciples of the Heavenly Sound sect anxious. 10 days ago, 2 of our disciples accepted a mission and were assassinated by the Dark Conjurers. The Dark Conjurers were naturally acting according to the orders of their employer. Therefore, we, the Abyss, have annihilated the Dark Conjurers and found the mastermind. Now, we are here to kill her. Wang Xian stared right at the sect leader of the Heavenly Sound sect and spoke emotionlessly. However, his response made the surrounding disciples gasp. Finally, they understood why the Abyss had annihilated the Dark Conjurers. It was to take revenge against the Dark Conjurers for killing 2 of their disciples. To find the mastermind, they had annihilated the Dark Conjurers. Domineering, horrifying, and unable to assess with common sense. The sect leader of the Heavenly Sound sect could feel his eyebrow twitch. Clearly, he found this answer too shocking and chilling. The Abyss was too domineering and brazen. The remaining inborn experts of the Heavenly Sound sect had all picked up their musical instruments and placed them in front of them. They were all prepared to engage in battle with the imperious Abyss instantly if required. The sect leader of the Heavenly Sound sect looked at the book in his hands. After going through the information in it, his face sank gradually. The information in the book was printed out. There wasn't any concrete evidence. "This couldn't be considered as evidence and can't prove anything," replied the sect leader of the Heavenly Sound sect after looking through the information. "Our Abyss isn't interested in falsifying evidence. We are just letting you take a look. We are still going to kill the mastermind." Wang Xian remarked coldly before turning to Hu Qingqing. Mo Qinglong, Mo Yuan and the Dragonians also turned to Hu Qingqing. Their eyes were filled with killing intent. "You deserve death for engaging the Dark Conjurers to kill 2 of our disciples." Wang Xian stared at Hu Qingqing and remarked coldly. Just as he finished his words, Mo Yuan struck. Overwhelming killing intent surrounded him. It was so dense that it appeared to have materialized. Turning his 5 fingers into claws, he struck towards Hu Qingqing. At this moment, Hu Qingqing's face was as white as a sheet. Cold sweat covered her forehead and horror filled her eyes. She no longer had the same flirtatious looks, arrogance and confidence as before. When she saw the approaching Mo Yuan, she screamed in horror. "No! Why are you guys killing me? How dare you kill my granddaughter? The Abyss must be courting death." Murderous intent gleamed in the eyes of the vice sect leader of the Heavenly Sound sect. Moving his fingers across the zither, demonic aura turned into sharp edges and attacked towards Mo Yuan. Rumble. At this moment, Wang Xian waved his arm. A fireball flew towards the sect leader of the Heavenly Sound sect and exploded. Ka ka ka. The zither broke after a single strike. Chapter 329, Indomitably Haughty. "No! Ah! Save me, Grandpa!" A scream shrieked from the training field of Heavenly Sound sect. Along with the blood-curdling scream came an explosive blast. The zither of the vice sect leader had been destroyed with a single palm strike. When the crowd saw what had happened, they gasped and cringed in fear. The faces of the 6 inborn experts fumed with rage when they saw the Abyss assassins approaching. Courting doom, one of them hollered. "Zing, zing, zing. As melodies began to play, countless wind blades, water droplets, demonic snakes, and golden needles were fired out from the musical instrument. Howl! Right then, a growl from the divine dragon came blasting through the air. Following which, an inferno divine dragon situated itself in front of the 6 inborn experts, blocking them. Flames torching like molten lava came spewing out of the inferno divine dragon, which put a direct stop to all the attacks. In the same moment, Hu Qingqing gazed ahead at Mo Yuan in utter despair. Ah, she cried while taking steps back. While the 2 half-step inborns beside Hu Qingqing broke out in a cold sweat, neither of the young men dared to take a step forward. Die! Mo Yuan roared. Without the slightest hesitation, his fingers transformed into claws of the devil dragon, as he struck at Hu Qingqing in a bid to attack. Ack, ack, ack. As Hu Qingqing landed on the ground, she coughed with a weak voice void of hope while she stared, eyes wide in terror. Even on the brink of death, she didn't have the slightest clue as to who from the abyss she had killed, and why they got rid of her so menacingly. She had been radiating with glamour on the stage of the training field just a while ago, with high hopes of vying for the position of saintess. And yet, the same Hu Qingqing now lay motionless and lifeless on cold ground. Abyss, you're goners. I'll get rid of you all, the vice-sect leader of the Heavenly Sound sect roared. As he burst with fury, bouts of demonic aura gushed from the training field and shot skyward. Clang, clang, clang. Just then, a frantic melody started to play and it boomed throughout the 9 Peaks mountain. It had come from the musical instrument held by the leader of Heavenly Sound sect. Tweet, tweet. Tweet, tweet. Upon 2 chirps, 2 birds swooped over from individual mountain peaks, surging as quick as fighter planes as they flapped their gigantic wings. Trespassers in the Heavenly Sound sect shall die, a voice hollered, as numerous shadows came darting out of the 9 Peaks mountain. Upon emerging, they flew over short distances. It was 7 elders who had flown out, each gripping onto a musical instrument and exuding a terrifying aura as they did. Especially so for the elderly lady who emerged atop the most central peak, who displayed an air of dignity with a sparkling zither in her arms. Leaving their mountain peaks, the experts landed on the training field. They were joined by the 2 giant birds, which measured up to 5 meters with wings spread open, as they gazed down upon Wang Xian and gang. With icy stares and gnawing claws, the birds were ready to attack any time. Abyss assassins, you guys are indeed savage. With guts to barge into the sacred grounds of our Heavenly Sound sect, you can forget about leaving here today. For you shall be buried within our grounds for eternity, said the elderly lady flatly. With her zither in hands, she swept her gaze across Wang Xian and gang. Ha! Seems like the Heavenly Sound sect's bent on keeping us here till our deaths, with no means to compromise, huh? Wang Xian asked. In a cold demeanor, he surveyed the 14 inborn experts. Did you think you could leave, after killing our sect members? The elderly lady asked without the slightest cringe on her face. She remained expressionless despite being face to face with the renowned Abyss. So what if they are the Abyss? The Heavenly Sound sect hath no fear. Ha! With just the few of you. Wang Xian let out a laugh. With a deathly stare, he continued, those with the guts to kill members of the Abyss must be prepared for death. Should the Heavenly Sound sect dare to intervene, then let's have a fight. We'll see who's to be wiped out first. As Wang Xian's obnoxious statement trumpeted throughout the entire Heavenly Sound sect, the entire senior management could not help but narrow their eyes in fear. They took a look at the formidable 7-metered Inferno Divine Dragon, which currently stood in front of the Abyss assassins. Thereafter, they eyed the particular Abyss member, recalling how he had just destroyed the vice-sect leader's zither with a single palm strike. To which, their faces stiffened in vigilance. They were obnoxious beyond tolerance for challenging the sect to see which party would first perish. This made them either lunatics or powerful opponents. All around, the Heavenly Sound sect disciples watched on in silence, as cold sweat trickled down their foreheads. Huh, the elderly lady expressed out of perplexity. She frowned upon hearing Wang Xian's words. Supreme Elder, the leader of Heavenly Sound sect, greeted as he walked over to the elderly lady, placing a booklet in her hands. Her face twitched as she scanned through the records in the booklet. Her slight surprise was now replaced with anger in her eyes. Is this information reliable? She asked. It was the Abyss who tossed them over, the sect leader replied. Check. Deploy all manpower from our Heavenly Sound sect, and check thoroughly on this matter. Check, even if it should cost any lives, the elderly lady snapped in a rage. To think that a candidate had resorted to employing assassins to get rid of competitors, in order to vie for the position of saintess. This was a taboo to the Heavenly Sound sect. Utterly shocked, the rest of the sect disciples stared at the Supreme Elder. They were clueless about what had caused such anger from the Supreme Elder. Even should our disciples from the Heavenly Sound sect have erred, it'll be up to us to handle it. By stepping onto the sacred grounds of our sect to commit murder, you Abyss really have no regard for us, have you? The elderly lady rebuked blatantly, tossing the booklet at the sect leader. Ha! Let me tell you, old fogey. We've already killed your men. Should you dare stop us, we'll let the Heavenly Sound sect run in a bloodbath. Wang Xian fired back at the elderly lady. Slightly agitated, he glared at the rest of the sect. On the other hand, Mo Qinglong, Mo Yuan and the rest of Wang Xian's gang were oozing with bloodthirst. Having massacred over 1,000 dark conjurers previously, each of them had come with blood-stained hands. When their thirst for blood was unleashed, it was more than enough to spark terror. As for Wang Xian, he too was exuding a strong aura of the divine dragon, which shot straight ahead for the senior management of the Heavenly Sound sect. With his prowess on full display this time, even the air had intensified as it began to sizzle. The ground below Wang Xian's feet began to crack apart, and as it did, the crack widened and extended northwards. Roar! The Inferno Divine Dragon let out a growl before it descended in front of Wang Xian and transformed into a smaller, 1-meter dragon. The dragon rested its head on Wang Xian's shoulder while staring right ahead at the crowd with its cold and emotionless eyes. The air of invincibility was enough to spook the senior management from the Heavenly Sound sect. Such stance, the elderly lady panicked in a brief moment of fear. She could feel an element of fire sizzling up all around her. She even had the hunch that the surrounding air would begin to burn, should that particular one from the Abyss will it too. Dan Realm, he must be an expert from the Dan Realm, an elder standing not too far away mumbled with a burdened look. They're unrivaled, given that Lao Zu's currently away, the leader of Heavenly Sound sect squeaked softly. Having figured out Wang Xian's abilities, a tinge of fear flashed across his eyes. What is it? I've already killed your men. Aren't you going to strike? Wang Xian asked as he gazed past all the inborn experts from the Heavenly Sound sect. Chapter 330, Kill the Saint, Leave with Ease. The taunt resounded within the Heavenly Sound sect. However, the entire Heavenly Sound sect quietened down after Wang Xian's voice died down. No one dared to make a move. The expressions on the inborn experts from the Heavenly Sound sect were changing rapidly. The atmosphere instantly chilled. Around them, the disciples of the Heavenly Sound sect were shocked and horrified. Feeling that unrivaled aura, their bodies were shivering in fear. They were surprised to see that the members of the upper management of the sect did not react to the taunt. There were 14 inborn realm experts and 2 inborn level sacred birds from the Heavenly Sound sect right now. However, they didn't dare to attack the 10 assassins from the Abyss. It's him. It's definitely him. At this moment, Tang Yinxian stared intensely at Wang Xian from the side of the training field. Even though he was wearing the Abyss mask, she could still recognize him. That familiar figure was his. The amiable young man who had brought her an inborn spiritual weapon as gift yesterday was currently in their sacred sect and had killed the granddaughter of her vice sect leader. The scene of Wang Xian standing upright and facing off against the experts of the sect greatly shocked her. What incredible strength and imposing stance. Tang Yinxian couldn't match the figure of the person she had met and had a meal together with yesterday with the one in front of her eyes currently. However, she was certain that it was him. Ha! If you guys aren't going to fight, we are leaving then. Wang Xian laughed out loud and looked haughtily at the group. Behind the mask, he revealed a faint expression of ridicule. Oh right. At this moment, Wang Xian turned his head around. The experts of the Heavenly Sound sect stared bitterly at Wang Xian. Murderous intent and shame filled their eyes. Old hag, you were too arrogant previously. Moreover, the disciple of the Heavenly Sound sect have killed 2 disciples of ours. I have to kill another one. As he finished his words, his figure disappeared from sight instantly. The next moment, Wang Xian appeared before the saint of the Heavenly Sound sect. Don't you dare. When the old lady saw Wang Xian appearing before the newly crowned saint in an instant, she was infuriated. She played the Heavenly Sound zither instantly and sharp wind blades shrouded towards Wang Xian. Wang Xian didn't even look back. Waving his hand back, the dragon head around him enlarged. Roar! A wall of flames neutralized all the wind blades. Seeing this, the experts of the Heavenly Sound sect gasped. This was how horrifying and invincible a Dan realm expert was. At this moment, Wang Xian stared coldly at the horrified saint of the Heavenly Sound sect. He was the young man who provoked him the previous day. No. We have no qualms. No. Please don't kill me. At this moment, Wang Xian could no longer see the arrogance and haughtiness from the saint. He pleaded for mercy in horror and his face was filled with cold sweat. He almost wanted to kneel on the floor. Didn't you say you were going to kill me personally? Wang Xian looked mockingly at the saint of the Heavenly Sound sect and repeated the ruthless words he had said to Wang Xian the previous day. What? The saint was lost in the instant. However, a figure quickly flashed in his mind. His eyes popped wide open and were filled with disbelief. It can't be. How can this be possible? His inner self was screaming in despair. That rascal from yesterday, that insignificant guy from before. He's actually the leader of the abyss. He's the horrifying existence that all the experts in the sect didn't dare to go against. Yet, he had actually made a bold claim to kill him the previous day. He felt strength being sapped away from his body as he slumped onto the chair behind him. The hysterical laughter resounded throughout the training field. Subsequently, Wang Xian jumped and left rapidly. Behind him, Mo Qinglong, Mo Yuan and the other Dragonians followed closely behind and left the Heavenly Sound sect. The members of the upper management of the Heavenly Sound sect pulled long faces and looked bitterly at the rapidly disappearing figures. They couldn't help but feel helpless. If our Laozu was here, we wouldn't have had to suffer such grievances, the sect leader of the Heavenly Sound sect growled bitterly, clenching his fist tightly. 10 assassins of the abyss had barged into their Heavenly Sound sect and killed 2 of their disciples right in front of them. One of them was the granddaughter of the vice sect leader while the other was their saint. They showed no regards and killed them in a domineering manner. Puff! I'll report this to Laozu. Besides this, settle this matter as soon as possible. The old lady took a deep breath. She stared at the book in the hands of the sect leader and instructed coldly. The abyss had killed their disciples. This was something they would want to make them pay for. However, the one who had offended the abyss and resulted in them killing the disciples of the Heavenly Sound sect would receive punishment too, regardless of whether she was already dead. Nonetheless, they wanted to investigate this matter thoroughly. If there were people supporting these people in the dark, they shall not be forgiven either. The old lady took a glance at the vice sect leader before leaving. The surrounding few inborn experts also pulled long faces as they moved towards the main peak to discuss the matter. That's too horrifying. The abyss is simply too strong. They actually managed to intimidate our experts from taking actions. Their strength has definitely reached the level of a sacred sect. Otherwise, our heavenly sound sect wouldn't be that wary. Perhaps it's because our Laozu isn't around and the Supreme Elder didn't dare to act rashly. The assassin from the abyss is too strong. Look at our training field. Even the tough flooring of the training field has cracks of over 10 meters long. Is he still human? Our saint was killed directly. He's really unlucky. The abyss is indeed incomparably horrifying and domineering, just as the rumors said. The saint hadn't offended them but was still implicated in this. The surrounding disciples exchanged glances and whispered softly among themselves. For the disciples of the Heavenly Sound sect, it was as though they had experienced a 10-0 earthquake. The self-proclaimed Invincible sect was invaded directly and the invaders even killed on the ground. This had doused their arrogant attitude with a cold basin of water. How did Senior Sister Hu offend the assassins of the abyss? From what their leader said, it appears that Senior Sister Hu had employed the dark conjurers to assassinate their disciples. At this moment, the disciples of the Heavenly Sound sect thought of a question when they looked at the corpse on the stage. The crowd was confused, baffled, surprised and shocked. Who would have expected things to develop like this? Tang Yinxian looked at the Hao Zhong in his hands before looking in the direction where the saint had been reduced to dust. At this moment, she couldn't help but sigh. She knew why Hu Qingxing had been killed and also the reason why the saint had eventually been reduced to dust. All of these things were simply the consequences of their actions. The pride of an expert isn't something they could offend. They were too arrogant. Tang Yinxian shook her head slightly and placed Hao Zhong back into the box. After today's incident, the position of the saintess was almost certainly hers. Chapter 331, To refine all elixir pills in the world with the origin source flame. Young Master, Mo Shiwu has sent word. The floating island is now beside the Bohai Sea. A group of Dragon Palace members is now guarding it, the Dragonians updated Wang Xian. After exiting from the Heavenly Sound sect, 7 Dragonians from the Abyss parted ways with Wang Xian, while he rushed over to Rivertown on his caravan. The original plan was to transform the Bohai Sea Island into a base, but it had since been aborted due to the emergence of the Sacred Seas of Swords. Construction on the island was also left to waste, while the group of Dragonians was given free rein to develop on their own. As of now, the Bohai Sea Island was of minimal use to Wang Xian and gang. On the other hand, the floating island had taken over as the optimal base. We'll transform the floating island, and refurbish a part of it into the future base of the Dragon sect. In addition, we'll refurbish another part of the island into a scenic spot. Yes, and the area shall also serve as a place for residence, fun, and leisure. Wang Xian elaborated with a radiating smile. Yes, young master. Mo Qinglong nodded in acknowledgement. The caravan sped its way ahead and arrived at the villa before nightfall. Wang Xian walked into the villa beaming, only to realize that there was no one in the room. He gave Xiaoyu a call and was told that the group of girls had gone out for a meal and shopping. Let's go. Let's head over to the floating island, Wang Xian said, shaking his head. With one quick shift, Wang Xian dived into the sea and hurried over in the direction of the floating island. As he was nearing the floating island, Wang Xian could see his group of Dragon Sect henchmen patrolling around the island. Under their protection, the floating island would never be seized, even if it should be discovered. For 3 level 11 creatures and close to another 30 inborn level fighters had spaced themselves out around the perimeter of the island. This made the island impregnable, even if it was attacked by 2 sacred sects at once. Whereas Mo Shiwu had seen to the clearing up and sorting out of the treasures on the island single-handedly, keeping them stored in a room. After these treasures were sold for cash, there would be more than sufficient funds to commence construction on the island. Under Wang Xian's orders, the leisure area was to be constructed in resemblance to famous beaches, so it would be very ideal as a relaxation spot in the times to come. As he arrived at the spiritual medicine garden, Wang Xian saw that the spiritual medicine plants were growing well and healthy. "Let's test out my art of refining elixir pills," Wang Xian suggested to himself. He'd had no opportunity to try it out ever since he had gained the technique. The art of refining elixir pills was an ability which Wang Xian now prioritized. His intention was thus to master it as soon as possible. The most ordinary of elixir pills would be level 1 elixir pills, amongst which, the qi accumulation pills considered the elementary elixir pill. Level 2 to 3 martial artists would take them to upgrade a level directly. In addition, the qi accumulation pills able to help strengthen one's constitution when taken, which would greatly benefit even level 5 to 6 martial artists. As he stood in front of the spiritual medicine garden, he began to recall individual elixir pill recipes. Qi accumulation grass, and water flower. Wang Xian exclaimed. He remembered that only 2 types of spiritual grasses were required in the refinement of a qi accumulation pill, whereas there was only one formula to abide by in the refinement of an elixir pill. A level 1 elixir pill would be attained using flame refinement, along with the combination of 2 types of spiritual grasses in a perfected ratio. While a level 2 elixir pill would require the combination of 4 spiritual grass types during refinement, and 9 types in the case of a level 3 elixir pill, and so on and so forth. Hence, a level 4 elixir pill would take up 16 spiritual grass types, given that the formula was the square of the pill level in question. Meanwhile, a stock of qi accumulation pill and a water flower could produce more than 1 elixir pill after refinement, where powerful alchemists could even produce up to 3 pills in one go. And these several pills would be worth more than 10 times the original value of the qi accumulation grass and water flower combined. Thus the occupation of an alchemist was a very lucrative career. Yet, at the same time, it was one which required substantial investment. Hence, many alchemists ended up losing money as the refinement of elixir pills did not come with guaranteed success. According to Sui Huang, only several forces within the underworld had mastered the art of refining elixir pills, thus controlling its industry, which makes alchemists even rarer than miracle doctors. The medical saint sect was the best when it came to the art of refining elixir pills, given that they possessed the most elixir pill recipes. Using these elixir pills to help save and treat patients, they were thus ranked amongst the top 3 of all sacred sects. Next came the medical tripod mountain sect. Not only were they a first-class force, but the apex of all, one which even other sacred sects maintained close ties with. There were barely any existing alchemists within the underworld, which explained why elixir pills became even rarer. Wang Xian walked into the spiritual medicine garden, and plucked a stalk of qi accumulation grass and a water flower. As the 2 were level 1 spiritual grasses, there were plenty of them growing in the garden. To which, he began to recollect the composite ratio of the qi accumulation pill along with the essentials of refining one. Based on the manual on the art of refining elixir pills, an alchemy furnace is not required for the refinement of pills below level 3. It'll only be necessary for pills of higher levels. Under stabilized flames, melt the qi accumulation grass and water flower. At the moment when they melt, mix the 2 together in ratios of 1:035 to 2:312 respectively. Thereafter, simmer the mix in mid-fire until the 2 blend together perfectly, Wang Xian recited. This involved the melting and ablation points. As the name suggests, melting points concern the melting of composites. As for ablation, this involves the composite turning into ash. Where the flames are too strong, the spiritual grasses would turn directly into ash, and render the refinement a complete failure. In addition, there were the opportune moments of blending, and timings to be considered, making it all the more complicated. Hence, the art of refining elixir pills was not as simple as it seemed. It would take hundreds, even thousands of practice attempts before one could become an alchemist. Humph, let's give it a go. Wang Xian willed himself as he took in a deep breath. By inhaling deeply, he helped to calm himself down as he sorted his thoughts out. First came the controlling of the flame temperatures, which had to be neither too high nor too low. Next came the composite ratios of the ingredients. The controlling of flames was a piece of cake to Wang Xian. With the origin source flame in his possession, he could therefore change the temperatures of the flame at will. As Wang Xian stretched his palms out, a ball of flames appeared on both. At his will, he transformed the flames into two small objects which resembled ramekins. Glowing, the two flaming bowls seemed to brim with life. First, let's try to control and adjust the flames, Wang Xian said as he looked at the two flaming bowls. At his will, the flames on the left bowl darkened in color, while the one on the right remained constant. Alright, the two spiritual grasses need to be mixed together within 1 second after they've melted. Plus, they have to be blended according to the perfect ratio. Otherwise, the elixir pill will end up as poison instead of medicine, Wang Xian cautioned. With one swift toss, Wang Xian emptied the two spiritual grasses into the flaming bowls. Just then, the notification came. Ding! Are you intending to refine all elixir pills in the world with the origin source flame? To which, Wang Xian was mildly startled as his face twitched briefly. Yes. Wang Xian nodded immediately, as his eyes glistened. Suddenly, Wang Xian noticed changes in the flames in his hands. They turned red, crimson red to be exact, and as the two spiritual grasses landed upon the fiery surface, they melted into drops of liquid. The liquid appeared very eye-catching as it swirled within the origin source flame. None of the liquid had dissipated, as though it had been protected by the flames, which meant that the medicinal effects had not weakened either. TSK. At this rate, it seems like we can bypass many steps in the refining of elixir pills. Wang Xian gasped in excitement. Controlling the liquids of the two spiritual grasses once again, he willed them, this time causing them to commence mixing. Blend! Wang Xian commanded with a glow in his eyes, looking at the four liquid masses. Chapter 332, The Horrifying Effects of Refining Elixir Pills. The origin source flame was the ultimate source of flame. Flame represented succession, life and civilization. On the other hand, it could also signify destruction. Refining elixir pills with the origin source flame was a perfect display of life. The flame wouldn't destroy the spiritual grass violently. Instead, it would fuse it perfectly into a new form. It was just like the sun that emitted flames. Only sunlight could enable better growth of many other living things. As the origin source flame melted the spiritual grass and enveloped it perfectly, it was able to prevent the loss of the medical effects. This process had also skipped the most important step of controlling the temperature of the flame. At the thought of Wang Xian, the liquid of qi accumulation grass and water flower fused together into a sphere slowly. As the origin source flame dissipated gradually, for elixir pills were slowly forming. A glow shimmered on the surface of these pills. Wang Xian was thrilled and stared intensely at the 4 elixir pills in his hand. The elixir pills were white and looked glossy. They were the size of a thumb and perfectly shaped. At the thought of Wang Xian, the information of these elixir pills popped up in his mind. Qi accumulation pill, level 1. Extractable dragon energy, 2322. When he saw his first batch of elixir pills, Wang Xian was thrilled. He had succeeded. He had succeeded on his first try. At this moment, Wang Xian's attention fell on the last elixir pill and he frowned. Broken Qi pill, level 1. Couldn't extract dragon energy. Broken Qi pill? Why is there a broken Qi pill? Furthermore, I can't extract dragon energy from it. Wang Xian's eyebrows knitted together. Suddenly, he recalled that when fusing the two spiritual medicines together, the liquid of the water flower wasn't sufficient for the last elixir pill. Although it wasn't enough, he still managed to gather the remains into an elixir pill. In the end, he got a broken qi pill. When refining elixir pills fail, the product will be poisonous. Wang Xian sighed emotionally. However, he also discovered a horrifying aspect of refining elixir pills with his origin source flame. Just as the introduction of the system said, he could refine all elixir pills in the world with the origin source flame. Even if the elixir pill recipe was wrong, he could still concoct elixir pills. The difference was that the product might be poisonous. Spiritual medicine could complement and counter each other. When fusing water attribute spiritual medicine with fire attribute spiritual medicine, an explosion could be caused by an error in the process. However, this wouldn't happen with the origin source flame. The origin source flame would ensure they fuse together. It would be great if all the pills made by the origin source flame were elixir pills. Wang Xian laughed delusionally. Using the origin source flame to refine elixir pills would be much easier for me. Wang Xian was ecstatic. He waved his hand and collected all the qi accumulation grass and water flower. He waved again and the origin source flame appeared. After which, he threw the spiritual medicine into the two red flames. Soon, all the spiritual medicine had been turned into liquid. Wang Xian looked at the two bowls of spiritual medicine liquid. Focusing on them, he started fusing them according to proportion. For him, allocating the proportion was the only thing that he needed to pay attention to. Explosions, temperature, control of the flame and the loss of medicinal effects weren't issues for him. In the hands of Wang Xian, refining elixir pills had become a process of squeezing the spiritual medicine into the shape of the elixir pills. The fusion of two types of spiritual medicine was very easy for him. Soon, droplets of spiritual medicine liquid coalesced together. Within the spiritual medicine garden, all the qi accumulation grass and water flower had been made into elixir pills. There was a total of approximately 150 elixir pills made. A qi accumulation grass with a water flower would give 4 elixir pills. This is 1 to 2 more than what Sui Huang told me. Hee hee. Wang Xian smiled and revealed a satisfied expression. Chapter 333, Holy Goddess. Wang Xian was now rich, in fact he was now a parvenu. He was in a great mood, as he hugged onto the porcelain vase which held more than $20 billion worth of elixir pills. In the next couple of days, I'll have some rest, and cultivate my spiritual grasses. Wang Xian grinned with satisfaction. He took a look at the time and realized that it was past 9 at night. In quick moves, he dashed for the villa. As he arrived at the villa, Wang Xian saw Guan Shuqing, Xiao Yu, Elder Fang, Xiao Ran and his younger sister practicing swordplay together in the courtyard. Sui Huang was lying at a side while giving guidance to those at practice. Currently, Guan Shuqing and Xiao Yu had attained status as half-step-inborns, which meant Elder Fang was no longer qualified to mentor Xiao Yu. While she may have been sect leader of the Thistles and Thorns sect, Elder Fang's prowess was still below a half-step-inborn. Rather than letting Elder Fang take her leave, Xiao Yu decided that she should stay on with her to practice cultivation. Naturally, Wang Xian did not treat Elder Fang shabbily either, but gifted her with a continual supply of spiritual grasses and spiritual medicine, which had eventually helped Elder Fang to attain the status of half-step-inborn that she was today. As for Xiao Ran, his abilities were only that of a level 8 martial artist. Nonetheless, it was a formidable feat considering that he was only in his early teens. Meanwhile, he was accompanied by his little sister, Lu Mengxin, who practiced with him. Having been accepted by Sun Lingxiu as an apprentice, Mengxin not only cultivated herself by practicing the divine dragon transformation, but also the art of cultivation by miracle Dr. Shenhua. both of which were attributed to the light element. "Brother!" Xiao Yu cheered. "Xiao Xian!" Guan Shuqing called out. "Master!" Xiao Ran greeted. The group did not stop their practice even as they saw Wang Xian and gang approaching, but continued as they welcomed them with a beam. Wang Xian reciprocated with a smile while he stood in the courtyard and watched briefly. "You guys continue practicing," Sui Huang ordered while he continued to lie down on the bench, eyeing Wang Xian with slit eyes as he spoke. "I've only taken in one disciple, yet I'm here guiding an entire group through their cultivation." Sui Huang resigned himself to his fate, with his size obviously meant for Wang Xian. Formidable Sui Huang, a good master who's so rare even in 10,000 years. Wang Xian laughed as he headed towards his bedroom. "Not the slightest sincerity in your compliment." Sui Huang nagged before he continued to guide Guan Shuqing and the group. Inside the villa, Sun Lingxiu was busy working away in the kitchen. Upon seeing her from the back, Wang Xian smiled as he passed by. The current Sun Lingxiu was truly impeccable. When dawn broke the following day, Wang Xian gazed at Guan Shuqing who was still in bed. She had gone back to sleep smirking after she managed to apply for leave. As Wang Xian walked down the villa, a thought came to mind. "I'll take a look at the Divine Dragon Medical Hall," Wang Xian decided, before he hastened his pace over. He had not been to the Divine Dragon Medical Hall even once since placing it under the care of Sun Lingxiu. But the latter had given him a card just the day before. The card had held a value of more than $200 million, which were the takings of the medical hall for the past 10 days. This translates to more than $20 million in daily takings, which was much higher than what he had seen during his days over there. As Wang Xian arrived at the main entrance of the Divine Dragon Medical Hall, he was astonished by the sight before him. It was just around 10 in the morning, but more than 20 people had gathered at the main entrance. It was a group clad in ordinary wear, consisting of both young and old, many of whom looked like villagers. They were standing at the main entrance and queuing quietly, no one daring to create a ruckus. Wang Xian was rather surprised but continued to head inside. As he walked past the main entrance, he discovered that the interior had been flooded by people. The miracle Dr. Blood Man was also inside, treating patients and giving consultations. Several elderly people were lying on the sickbeds. With their shabby attire, it was clear that their conditions back home were less than ideal. Wang Xian turned to look at the surrounding walls, only to discover that they were covered in all sorts of pennant flags. On some of them were messages thanking Dr. Sun for her selfless dedication to helping and saving lives, while others complimented her as female miracle doctor of Great Chinese, as an expression of gratitude for her contributions. Pennant flags of all varieties hung on the walls, covering them almost to the brim. Wang Xian continued to look at the sides and realized that the rules which he had set previously had all been changed. To save the dying and aid the injured, kind-hearted but poor patients shall receive treatment free of charge, one of the rules read. Martial artists of rich families will be charged no less than $5 million for treatment, another said. This is no doubt befitting of Sun Lingxiu's character. Wang Xian exclaimed as he saw the amended rules by the doors. He was not the least bit angry over the amendments but instead admired Sun Lingxiu for her benevolent nature. Having witnessed many life and death situations, and getting accustomed to such partings in the hospital, she had seen for herself countless patients who were unable to afford treatment due to poverty. Therefore, she chose to treat for free. Which, of course, was meant solely for the impoverished, the kind but poor people, all of whom would be placed under the care of Miracle Dr. Blood Man. While he appeared to be a middle-aged man, Miracle Dr. Blood Man was in fact in his 80s and was able to determine people's character through certain means, which meant no one could go undetermined. That said, no one had dared to visit in disguise as a poor person, for the Miracle Dr. Blood Man was not a kind soul himself. After some who had dared to risk it suffered as a result, none had made further attempts. The first level was meant for treatment of the ordinary folks, while the second level was set aside by Sun Lingxiu for the treatment of the affluent martial artists. With this, Wang Xian made his way up to the second floor. Just as Wang Xian arrived at the second floor and was about to walk further inside, he was hauled to a stop. Hold it right there. Queue up if you're here to seek treatment. Wait at the side, the voice ordered him. Huh? Wang Xian said in shock, as he looked to the side. It was a young man who had called out to Wang Xian coldly, as he sat at the side with his head tilted slightly skywards. Beside him were two other middle-aged men. Aside from the trio, there were two other young men, each with a sword in hand. It was clear that they were from the underworld. In spite of their air of arrogance, the three young men were very handsome-looking. There were also two fresh flowers which lay beside the young duo, looking really gorgeous. What's with this situation? Wang Xian questioned, slightly confused. He continued to walk inwards while brushing the young men aside. Don't you know the rules here? Access is strictly prohibited when miracle doctor Sun's attending to patients. The young man who had called out to Wang Xian earlier scolded again when he saw that he was being ignored. Who are you? Wang Xian asked indifferently as he eyed the young man. You're not qualified to know who I am. Wait here if you're seeking treatment. Otherwise, if you have designs on Dr. Sun, then scram, the young man hollered at Wang Xian, taking a domineering stance. Here to court the holy goddess. Identify yourself, and we'll decide. If you're not qualified, then get out at once, one from the young duo chipped in snobbishly as he raised his head. Wang Xian found it a tad amusing as he looked at the three obnoxious young men. Holy goddess, huh? That must be the title meant for Sun Lingxiu. Given Sun Lingxiu's beauty and elegance, 99 out of 100 men would be attracted. It's only natural that she has suitors. Wang Xian laughed as he continued making his way inside. Stop there. Didn't you hear? Are you courting death? The three young men threatened as their faces darkened when they saw Wang Xian's dismissal. As they stood up composedly, they fixed their focus on Wang Xian. The two middle-aged men glared at Wang Xian with icy stares. Sun Lingxiu frowned. She was treating a patient inside the consultation room when she heard the commotion outside. Turning her head over, she looked on in surprise but walked over to Wang Xian with all smiles immediately after. Xiao Xian, what brings you here at this hour? Sun Lingxiu beamed like a blooming flower, which was enough to make hearts flutter. I'm here to take a look. Wang Xian smiled back in response. The three wastrel disciples outside haven't been rude to you, have they? Sun Lingxiu asked blatantly. As she walked to Wang Xian's side, she swept her glance past the three young men. No, they haven't. These three look rather professional, they're pretty good. Wang Xian evaluated with a laugh. Ha! I'll make you tea. Sun Lingxiu giggled. She hurried back into the room to retrieve the teacups and started brewing Wang Xian's favorite Longjing tea. This, the three young men outside the room uttered as they stared at their goddess in astonishment. How is this possible? This can't be, my goddess, their voices trailed off. Chapter 334, Mission at the Yellow River. The three young men at the door looked blankly at this scene. Sun Lingxiu was their goddess and was referred to as the holy goddess from Jiangbei by the entire medical world. At this moment, she was acting so lovingly with a young man. Even an idiot would be able to see in her eyes her love and interest for the young man. Moreover, what miracle Dr. Sun had said had crushed their hearts. In their faces, she called them three good-for-nothings. She even asked the young man if the three of them had offended him. If they had, would she throw them out? On top of it, the response from the young man infuriated them further. The 3 door guards are pretty good. Door guards? The trio pulled a long face, stood there and were shivering a little from anger. When they saw their dream goddess pouring tea for that young man enthusiastically while treating them coldly, they even had the thought of dying. Who's that guy? Why is our holy goddess treating him so warmingly? A young man growled in a low voice. He stared bitterly into the medical hall and clenched his fist tightly. However, he didn't dare to charge in or question. The reputation of the Divine Dragon Medical Hall was known throughout the underworld. The title of Holy Goddess and Miracle Doctor's Son wasn't just approval for her medical skills. It was also a recognition of the strength she possessed. 5 days ago, an elder of a first-class force had come to seek treatment. The elder agreed to pay 6 spiritual stone but refused to pay up after treatment. The elder from the first-class force was then finished off by the blood man at ground floor. The first-class force was infuriated and sent 2 inborn experts to take revenge on the Divine Dragon Medical Hall. In the end, the 2 inborn experts never left the place. From that day onwards, everyone was shocked to realize that not only did the Holy Goddess, Miracle Doctor's Son, have incredible medical skills, but she also possessed horrifying strength. She would at least be at the inborn level. Since then, no one dared to kick up a ruckus in the Divine Dragon Medical Hall. As for the Holy Goddess, Miracle Doctor's Son, she made it to the 5th rank on the Miracle Doctor's chart, an extremely high ranking, within 10 days. The expressions on the 3 young men changed rapidly. In the end, they walked out bitterly. The business is really good. Wang Xian looked at Sun Lingxiu and commented with a smile. Yeah, it's pretty good. We have patients from all over the world coming here to seek treatment each day. Sun Lingxiu revealed a joyous smile. However, we rarely get payments with spiritual stones. Wang Xian didn't mind and shook his head as he replied, it must have been tough on you. Not at all. I'm really happy with the way I'm living now. Sun Lingxiu replied contentedly. Xiao Xian, wait a minute for me. Let me treat a patient in the medical hall first. Looking at Sun Lingxiu's sincere expression, Wang Xian was taken aback and quickly looked around him. There was an isolated space near the window. Wang Xian walked over and saw a pink bolster. He smiled gently and switched on the computer by the side. After entering the underworld website, Wang Xian started browsing. He had various types of elixir pills and wanted to sell them. One couldn't put things up for sale on the underworld website. If one wished to sell something, he had to find the buyer himself. Wang Xian did find people looking to purchase elixir pills. However, these buyers were only looking for a single pill. Therefore, he ignored the request. When he clicked into the Miracle Doctor's chart, he was surprised to find Sun Lingxiu reaching the 5th rank on the Miracle Doctor's chart. Dr. Sun, this is our invitation letter. Our guys will be here to receive you 2 days from now. At this moment, the voice of a middle-aged man came from outside the medical hall. All right, I'll be there on time. Thank you, Dr. Sun. The middle-aged man left quickly and Sun Lingxiu walked in with an invitation letter. Wang Xian looked at it inquisitively. This is an invitation letter from our country. They discovered a strange creature and a virus on a plain beside Huangqi City near the Yellow River. If one were bitten by the creature, he would definitely be dead. Furthermore, they found strong venom within the river water. Several hundreds of people had died and the place is now cordoned off. There's a need to find the reason for it soon or the virus might spread to other places. 3 days ago, the representatives of our country came to invite me. Once this incident is settled, they will give me a light attribute spiritual ball, Sun Lingxiu explained to Wang Xian. Oh. Strange creatures and viruses? Wang Xian was surprised. You can't really call them strange creatures or viruses. Instead, the creatures there have undergone a horrifying mutation. Currently, the top mission in the underworld is also regarding this. If one could help resolve this matter, he could enter the national treasury and choose 2 items to his liking. Sun Lingxiu looked at Wang Xian and continued, Xiao Xian, are you interested in going to take a look? I can enter the national treasury and choose any 2 items. Wang Xian was shocked to hear Sun Lingxiu. If there was ever a place with lots of treasures, it was the national treasury. Considering that the country had issued the mission on the underworld website, it would mean that there were things useful for martial artists. It wouldn't be an exaggeration to say that there would be lots of inborn-level weapons in the national treasury. It was said that there were 2 to 3 of the 10 famed swords kept within the National Museum. Besides weapons, there should be other powerful artifacts. These artifacts would likely draw the fervent attention of inborn experts. Wang Xian was dumbfounded. There should be alchemy furnaces in the national treasury. Moreover, the level of the alchemy furnace I can find there should be pretty high. Wang Xian thought to himself. He immediately clicked into the thread of the mission on the underworld website. Just as Sun Lingxiu had explained, the country had issued a mission regarding an incident that happened at Huangqi City near the Yellow River. Anyone who could identify the cause of the incident would be allowed to take 1 item from the national treasury. If one could resolve the incident, he could take any 2 items of his liking. The reward for this mission could be considered really handsome. Wang Xian was almost certain that the reward for this mission would be an object at the level of an inborn spiritual weapon. Naturally, no one would stop you if you did not wish to take any of these priceless treasures after entering the national treasury. Even the experts in the sacred sects will likely be attracted by this mission. Moreover, the country even invited and promised various miracle doctors various items on top of issuing the mission to the underworld. This mission is likely not as simple as it might seem, Wang Xian thought to himself. However, after pondering, he still decided to give it a try. If he could succeed and get a powerful alchemy furnace, it would be much easier for him to refine higher-level elixir pills. All right. Let's go together. Wang Xian said to Sun Lingxiu. All right, let's go together. Xiao Xian, these are some pictures and information on the situation of the sealed village near the Yellow River. You can take a look first. Sun Lingxiu took out a file by the side and handed it to Wang Xian. All right. Wang Xian nodded his head and opened up the file. When he saw the pictures in the file, he was taken aback. Chapter 335, The Arrogant Young Man from Medical Saint Sect. They were strange, even eerie, and yet ordinary creatures. There was an ant, a very huge one, and its head held a mass which resembled a mushroom. Then there was an all-black leech. With a mouth which was entirely split open, its claws stuck out with countless sharp pricks. Next was a white leech. With teeth on its head, its entire body was smudged in a sticky blood-colored liquid. While the last was a mosquito, a blood-sucking mosquito with a ghostly face and crimson body. These were 4 ordinary creatures, and yet they appeared so gruesome in the photos, as if they had gone through some terrifying mutation. Furthermore, each of these 4 otherwise tiny creatures were now the size of a human palm. Which made them all the more horrifying. Each record was captioned by numerous sentences below. The 4 creatures moved at accelerated speeds. Unless one had the abilities of a level 7 to 8 martial artist, it was impossible to dodge their attacks. In addition, once bitten by such creatures, a person would turn maniac. They would start biting others like a walking corpse and spread the virus to the remaining unaffected. According to the records, there were currently plenty of these creatures over there, within a radius of 30 kilometers. Little wonder why the miracle doctor has been asked to order for such a mission. Wang Xian exclaimed in shock as he read through the records. Given that only level 8 to 9 martial artists can ensure their own safety in such a place, there would be great hazards should these creatures be able to spread the virus further. To the extent where irreversible damages and losses were inevitable. There'll be someone fetching me in the morning, the day after tomorrow. We'll head over together then. Sun Lingxiu said cheerfully. Sure. Wang Xian nodded back. He had attended 2 classes at the university, after hanging around at the Divine Dragon Medical Hall for a while. When night came, he returned to the villa together with Guan Shuqing and Xiao Yu. Lan Qingyue had been busier lately, as she was expanding deep-sea jewelry at astonishing speeds. Moreover, the Zhou jewelry had been sold to deep-sea jewelry for an astronomical price. Since the pilgrimage incident, the Lingyue sect had been completely scared out of their wits. They were afraid that Wang Xian might really lead a team of experts over to have their sect annihilated. Since the Zhou jewelry had been acquired by Deep Sea Jewelry, the two had merged to become the nation's largest jeweler. After which, the company's market value had since doubled. Thus, Lan Qingyue had been busy handling company matters. The rest enjoyed a day of thorough relaxation at the villa. At dawn the following morning, a military jeep arrived at the villa's doorstep. A plain-clothed militant saluted Sun Lingxiu. Sit tight. We'll set off right away, the militant said. Wang Xian, Sun Lingxiu and the miracle Dr. Blood Man got in the jeep, and in no time arrived at the military airport nearby. Immediately after, a helicopter flew the trio in the direction of the Huangqi city. Huangqi City was a Tier 3 to 4 small city, situated near the plains where the Yellow River flowed past. This time, their destination was set for a region by one of the tributaries of the Yellow River. The aircraft landed on a makeshift helipad within the plains. As Wang Xian and the rest alighted, they saw many soldiers who had gathered around. The region was now cordoned off by high-voltage wires, in order to prevent creatures from escaping. But the method had yielded few results. Numerous temporary tents were also pitched up front. The area was also surrounded by many people, accompanied by tens of stationary aircrafts. This way please, Miracle Dr. Sun, a middle-aged man directed as he led Sun Lingxiu and the rest. They ended up at a gigantic tent which stood in the central location. With one look, it was clear that the tent had been set up as a temporary military command center. It was massive, and would not overcrowd even if it contained more than 100. In fact, the group could already see more than 100 inside when they first arrived. Wang Xian squinted his eyes briefly as he swept his gaze across. The tent was thronging with experts. There were more than a dozen inborn experts, while the remaining were all miracle doctors. There was a bald elder who stood out from the crowd. And Wang Xian recognized in an instant that he was Buddhist physician, who was ranked 6th on the miracle doctor's chart. Their arrival had turned many heads. Like a firefly which sparkled in the night, Sun Lingxiu shone in a pristine air which could not go unnoticed. It's the holy goddess, Miracle Dr. Sun, a group of young men in the tent exclaimed as their eyes glistened. To which, even the middle-aged men could not help but take a few more glances. Miracle Dr. Sun, this way please, said a middle-aged man dressed in military uniform when he saw Sun Lingxiu. Sure. Sun Lingxiu nodded as she walked into the tent. Inside the tent, there were close to 30 seats which were mostly occupied. Seated amongst them were people including all the inborn experts as well as several top-ranking miracle doctors. As Sun Lingxiu had been invited along, it was only natural that she be qualified to sit at the front. Furthermore, she had the means to, given her current reputation. Ack. It's rather crowded, but there aren't that many seats. Miracle Dr. Bloodman joked. As he laughed, he flopped onto a seat and looked around in relaxation. The room capacity is limited. Plus people will not gossip when the miracle doctors and experts are being seated here, the middle-aged militant explained with a smile. Indifferently, Wang Xian also sat down in a seat he found. He had just settled down when he felt a wave of cold stares surging towards him. Slightly taken aback, Wang Xian turned to take a look. Beside him, an aged elder looked on with burning stares. Beside him was a familiar figure, Yanxi the poison document. When Yanxi sensed Wang Xian looking in his direction, he acknowledged him with a friendly nod. The Sacred Followers Guild, a voice announced. As it did, Wang Xian saw a group dressed in a synchronized outfit, and felt a slight stir in his heart. Whereas the elder smirked as he looked on dryly. It must be the master of miracle Dr. Guang Hua. Wang Xian speculated to himself as he revealed a faint smile, brushing the elder's smirk aside. Fellows from the medical saint sect, this way, please, a voice greeted respectfully at the main entrance. Immediately, the crowd scrambled to give way, freeing up the path. A young man emerged in the middle of the crowd, with two other elders walking beside him. Exuding a fragrance of medicinal herbs, the arrogant trio made their way in with their heads held high. In particular, the young man who was walking in the middle, giving a dry smile while his gaze swept past all who were seated. With chest puffed out and head held high, the young man stopped briefly when he spotted Sun Lingxiu. Pausing for a moment, a glow flickered across his eyes. As he hurried his way over, he checked on the sides and looked towards Wang Xian. "Young lad, could you move over to the seat by the side?" An elder beside the young man said to Wang Xian flatly, while gesturing with his head low. Meanwhile, the young man remained silent. Medical Saint Sect. Even the Medical Saint Sect's here, and with 3 representatives, one chirped. I know those 2 elders. They are the poison duo of the Medical Saint Sect. Inborn level experts, highly renowned, another squeaked. Who's that young man? How is it that he's able to stand in between the poison duo? The third asked. Can't you tell by looking at his attire? The Medical Saint Sect regards the Hua family and the Bian family as their core. There's a Bian character on the young man's attire. He's likely the core disciple of the Bian family, another explained. Chapter 336, Insignificant Being. Scram. At this moment, the surrounding crowd started whispering. Medical Saint Sect was one of the 3 strongest sacred sects. Every action of theirs could draw the attention of the crowd. Although most of the people here were from powerful forces, few could match the Medical Saint Sect. Wang Xian heard the old man. He frowned, lifted the cup by his side and took a sip. Aren't there seats right there? He replied coldly. Hee. The young man laughed upon hearing Wang Xian. He ignored Wang Xian and looked to Sun Lingxiu who was beside Wang Xian. I believe this beautiful lady must be the holy goddess, Miracle Dr. Sunday. I have long heard of your name but I'm still surprised to finally get to see you. You are indeed deserving of the goddess title. The young man extended his hand, smiled and greeted, I'm Bian Yaoquan from the Medical Saint Sect. He's Bian Yaoquan. He's the core disciple of the Bian branch of Medical Saint Sect and has a high chance of becoming the successor of the sect leader of the Medical Saint Sect. The Hua family and Bian family of the Medical Saint Sect don't have many descendants. However, every single one of them is part of the core or a member of the higher management of the Medical Saint Sect. Hee. It appears that even the core disciples of the Medical Saint Sect couldn't resist the charm of Miracle Dr. Sunday. The name of Holy Goddess is indeed apt. When the surrounding crowd heard the young man's introduction, they began whispering softly among themselves. Sun Lingxiu lifted her head and looked coldly at the young man. She then looked towards Wang Xian. There was an old man with lots of scars on his face beside Bian Yaoquan. At this moment, he revealed a horrifying smile. You aren't qualified to sit here, said the old man emotionlessly to Wang Xian. Who's that young man? When the crowd heard the poison duo, they looked towards where Wang Xian was. Wang Xian had a young face and many people did not recognize him. Only a few people frowned and sank into deep thought after looking at Wang Xian. Oh! Coldness gleamed in Wang Xian's eyes. The young man and 2 old men in front of them were incomparably imperious. Who is qualified then? Wang Xian asked emotionlessly while tapping lightly on Zhan Lu with his finger. A brat like you is indeed not qualified, the old man with lots of scars said plainly. Waving his hand slightly, a faint gas shrouded towards Wang Xian. Ugly old man, keep your small tricks away. At this moment, a faint blood figure flashed across Wang Xian and the voice of Miracle Dr. Blood Man resounded throughout the entire tent. Ha! Ha! Two displeased voices sounded. One was from Bian Yaoquan. Seeing that Sun Lingxiu had completely ignored him, he was annoyed. As for Wang Xian, he wasn't paying attention to him at all. The poison duo would settle him. The second voice came from the old man with lots of scars. When he saw Miracle Dr. Blood Man move, he frowned. That is Miracle Dr. Blood Man, a famous miracle doctor in Europe. He is now following the holy goddess, Miracle Doctor's son, and sees her as his master. That young man must be. He must be that miracle doctor from Rivertown. They actually dared to go against the medical saint sect. That's not a wise decision. When the surrounding crowd witnessed the developments, they were all shocked. Scram! Bring your men along and get lost. Sun Lingxiu's expression turned cold immediately after seeing that ugly old man attacking Wang Xian with intoxicating poison. Even if others had attacked her, she wouldn't be this furious. In her heart, Wang Xian was someone that couldn't be offended. No one was allowed to do so. A flash of light gleamed in her eyes as she stared harshly at Bian Yaoquan. SSS. The surrounding crowd gasped upon hearing Sun Lingxiu. They had not expected the holy goddess to chide the people from the medical saint sect. You. When he heard Sun Lingxiu's emotionless remarks, Bian Yaoquan instantly felt embarrassed. He had been courteous to her and yet she chided him and demanded that he leave. Bian Yaoquan was really embarrassed and furious to be chided by someone he was fond of in front of the public. Die. When the poison duo heard Sun Lingxiu, their expressions changed as they turned around and glowered at Sun Lingxiu. Scram! Is there something freaking wrong with your hearing? Acting all high and mighty when you have just arrived. Which motherfucker raised you? You guys even attacked others with poison. Bastards, are you courting death? Sensing the two old men staring coldly at his master, Miracle Dr. Blood Man slammed his fists on the table heavily, stood up immediately and went on the offensive verbally with a string of vulgarities in English. He was in a tuxedo and looked just like a gentleman. However, what he said greatly contrasted his appearance. Rumble. The moment Miracle Dr. Blood Man finished his words, the poison duo turned green from anger. Horrifying aura started being emitted from them. What? You guys wanna fight? Hee hee. This is going to be interesting. Sensing the two old men releasing their aura, Miracle Dr. Blood Man stared at them coldly. Blood mist circulated around him. Everyone, please don't start a fight here. At this moment, a voice broke the standoff. The middle-aged man in a military uniform walked out and warned them. Hey, did you see what they have done? This ugly old man attacked us with poison. How presumptuous of them. They must be treating this as their backyard. Hearing the middle-aged man, Miracle Dr. Blood Man released his bloody aura, pointing at the old man with lots of scars as he spoke. The poison duo felt their eyebrows twitching a little as they stared intensely at Miracle Dr. Blood Man with dense killing intent. What right do you have to sit here? Bian Yaoquan looked furiously at Wang Xian and asked plainly. He's the 9th rank on the Miracle Doctor's chart, Miracle Dr. Wang from Rivertown. He's also the youngest of the Miracle Doctors. At this moment, the voice of Poison Doc, Yan Shi, sounded from a corner. He was playing with the poisonous snake in his hand as he made the remark in a light-hearted tone. When Bian Yaoquan heard him, he was taken aback and started feeling embarrassed. Bian Yaoquan. Wang Xian lifted his head, looked at the young man and said, "What are you then? You are just an insignificant being. You might have your parents giving in to you in medical saint sect, but you are in the outside world now. Who's going to give in to you? Questioning me? Just get lost. Wang Xian chided. The surrounding crowd looked at Bian Yaoquan with ridicule. There were lots of people here who were from sacred sect. Even if they weren't from sacred sects, they were inborn experts. They might fear the medical saint sect, but if they were afraid of a disciple from the medical saint sect, they would have let down their efforts to reach the inborn realm. Ha, rascal! Take a look around you. Who dares to act cool if he doesn't have the strength to back it? Take a look at yourself. Among those that are seated, who is a second-generation good-for-nothing? All of them are here because of their strength. The one who isn't qualified here is you. Miracle Dr. Blood Man mocked coldly. You. Bian Yaoquan's eyes were bloodshot as he stared furiously at Wang Xian and Miracle Dr. Blood Man. This was the first time his parents had let him out to experience the outside world. Yet. I'm a level 3 alchemist. Just wait and see. No one knew how formidable they were. 13 miracle doctors stood in front of 4 glass boxes, as they fixed their eyes on 4 horrifying mutated creatures. Wang Xian stared at the creatures and revealed a baffled expression on his face. Cadaveric ant, level 7. Unable to extract dragon energy. Cadaveric leech, level 8. Unable to extract dragon energy. Cadaveric black leech, level 7. Unable to extract dragon energy. Cadaveric mosquito, level 8. Unable to extract dragon energy. Cadaveric? Why is this word showing up in the names of all the creatures? Wang Xian observed the creatures with uncertainty, looking surprised. These creatures had been sucking fresh blood to maintain their life. They were also evolved with an ability to survive in the water. The middle-aged man said with a solemn look, their combat ability is equivalent to a level 7 or 8 martial artist, which is very powerful. What could it be that turned the ants into such horrifying monsters? The miracle doctors were puzzled by the ants, which possessed the prowess of level 7 or 8 martial artists. Ants can indeed kill an elephant now. Let me take a look. The Buddhist physician, ranked 5th on the miracle doctor's chart, walked to the glass box with the ants and turned on the switch on the box. Hiss. As soon as the switch was turned on, a cadaveric ant revealed its gigantic teeth as it let out a shriek while biting down on the arm of Buddhist physician. Buddhist physician remained unwavering. He reached out and grabbed the ant with ease. A rancid smell. No signs of vitality and pain. They are similar to the legendary zombies. Buddhist physician examined the cadaveric ant in his hand and commented indifferently. Zombie? The surrounding miracle doctors were slightly stunned. Zombies did exist, just like the vampires in the Western countries. However, there was a huge difference between zombies and vampires. Zombies were dead before they were resurrected. They had no intelligence, with a natural instinct to suck blood. But vampires were considered to be humans who had a unique way in cultivation arts. They were drastically different. Zombies had been prone to show up in ancient times. But most of the people tend to incinerate bodies in the modern days. Thus, no such creatures appeared anymore. Even if there were any, they were easy to deal with too. They are really almost like zombies. They are bloodsuckers that can't feel any pain. But humans will die after zombies suck their blood. If they suck the blood of humans, they will eventually turn into one of them. The middle-aged man added on, anyway, we took them to the lab for some tests. These creatures aren't really dead. Some form of energy keeps them alive so that they can continue growing, which marks a big difference from zombies. The surrounding miracle doctors knit their brows slightly. Ack, let me see. At this time, Miracle Dr. Bloodman was curious since he was a vampire himself. Hence, it was natural for him to feel intimate with such creatures. The rest of the miracle doctors looked at him as they shared the same thought too. Miracle Dr. Blood Man stared at the box with the leeches. He reached out to the box and opened it, putting his palm inside. Paw! Instantly, a leech attached itself onto the palm and crawled up to his arm rapidly. Miracle Dr. Blood Man did not hinder it as he watched the leech without a word. The palm-sized leech raised its head, revealing a set of horrible teeth as it threaded its way into the Miracle Dr. Blood Man's arm. The younger ones who followed the elders out for experience could not help but shiver when they saw the palm-sized leech squeezing itself into the arm of Miracle Dr. Blood Man. The middle-aged man in military uniform spoke to the crowd before turning to Bien Yao Quan. Young Master Bien, please write down the spiritual medicine you need. We will prepare it right away. All right. Bien Yao Quan nodded his head and walked to the side to write it down. After which, he handed the list to the middle-aged man in military uniform. Young Master Bien, do you require any other items? Asked the middle-aged man in military uniform after taking a look at the list. I'm good. I can refine level 3 elixir pills even without my alchemy furnace. Bien Yao Quan smiled confidently. Subsequently, he flipped his hand and a green flame appeared on his palm. Heavenly flame. Oh gosh. It's a heavenly flame. When the surrounding crowd caught a glimpse of it, they were shocked. Firmament flame, an exceptional flame for refining elixir. It could also increase the success rate of refining elixir pills. Bien Yao Quan explained plainly with pride. Incredible, the middle-aged man in military uniform wasn't stingy with his compliments. Medical Saint Sect indeed lives up to his name. Even a core disciple has a heavenly flame. They must be really rich. The surrounding crowd was shocked. Young Master Bien, we will send the spiritual medicine over in half an hour, the middle-aged man in military uniform said with a gentle smile. In that case, I'll just wait here. Bien Yao Quan nodded his head and turned to Wang Xian. He lifted his head slightly and remarked, all the medical techniques in the world originated from the Medical Saint Sect. However, the Medical Saint Sect isn't just focused on medical skills. We also delve into the arts of refining elixir pills. The arts of refining elixir pills is of a higher status than medical skills. As he completed his words, he turned to Sun Lingxiu before continuing in a cold tone, don't be so arrogant just because others are calling you the holy goddess. In my eyes, you are just an average woman. Tisk. Bien Yao Quan walked to a chair after speaking. The surrounding miracle doctors frowned but didn't say a thing. Even the group from the Sacred Followers Guild didn't retort what Bien Yao Quan said. There were bases to the claim that all medical techniques originated from the Medical Saint Sect. The Hua family and Bien family of the Medical Saint Sect were descendants of Hua Tuo and Bien He. They were the founding fathers of medical techniques in Chinese history. 99% of medical techniques had originated from them. The medical techniques of the miracle doctors around had all originated from the Medical Saint Sect. The Medical Saint Sect had a long history that stretched back 400 to 500 years. For the Medical Saint Sect, they were more interested in the arts of refining elixir pills instead of medical techniques. Only direct descendant disciples of the Hua family and Bien family were allowed to learn the arts of refining elixir pills. As for the external disciples, they were only taught medical techniques. All the miracle doctors and even the medical techniques of the Sacred Followers Guild were leaked from ex-external disciples of the Medical Saint Sect. Therefore, even though the sect leader of the Sacred Followers Guild ranked higher than the sect leader of the Medical Saint Sect on the Miracle Doctors chart, the sacred grounds of medical techniques were still at the Medical Saint Sect. From their names, one could also tell their intertwined origins. The path of elixir pills is the greatest path. The Buddhist physician held a string of Buddha beads in his hands as he mumbled to himself. Miracle doctors saved lives, but alchemists could strengthen oneself and others. Saving and strengthening were different in nature. The crowd of miracle doctors looked enviously at Bian Yao Quan. However, they soon kept such feelings to themselves and started researching the mutated animal in the glass box. Wang Xian glanced disdainfully at Bian Yao Quan, who believed he was better than the rest. You're tuning in to the Blissful Bookshelf YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.